Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on social media at Galen Trombley. I hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Please hold for a very important message. Lightspeed sequence initiated. How may I help you?
Bonjour.
Security breach.
The truth shall set you free. Awesome. It's a miracle.
Stabilize. 3, 2, 1. Mission complete.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Know really what it was. So it was going and it was like beeping. It was like, so I don't know if I have technology too close to the this thing, but usually like if I have a phone there, that'd be an issue too. But I don't know. It's a TV or the computer. But it was only last episode. But I played it back and it sounded totally fine. So I don't know. I'll figure it out. But just if you hear it, I don't just. Yeah. I think it still works, but I don't hear it right now. So, all right, we're live. Emmett Naughton. Let me see what. Sorry, I have a cheat sheet here. Technical support engineer at KnoCommerce. Full-time, present since March 2023. New venture. No one is a returning guest, Emmett. And I don't know. I love talking like all things techie, all things like. You got a finger on the pulse, I think, than more people that I know in my life on this kind of stuff, and it always fascinates me. And I figure I talk to someone who's way smarter at it than I am, and I maybe will learn a thing or two. So, Emmett, welcome back.
I appreciate that. Yeah, all things tech. Let's go.
So give us the. I find you a lot on LinkedIn, obviously Twitter. I'm not on Twitter as much. I feel like you got a pretty good handle on a lot of tech. I think that. When you kind of look at people that are in tech and people that have an understanding of tech, it's definitely its own ecosystem of people. I find that I'm on the outskirts. I understand some stuff, and some stuff is Greek to me, and I'm like, what is that? And then you just you're like, yeah, it's like a language, but you understand it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, yeah. So you're very comfortable with tech and where everything's kind of like
tech products, where market stuff's heading, and
AI.
Yeah.
We'll dive into that later.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about there.
So give us the last year, because what I think is going to give some people some, and again, this could be some advice. You talked about working at a startup, got laid off a couple times. Trying to get the job of like now looking at getting hired at some kind of job. Kind of give us that whole story, and maybe for some people that. Because we kind of talked about it. Like you do a lot of your work at home. Yep. You work obviously for a company that's not a local company, but you're able to have an input. And again, we'll dive more into the current company. But maybe people that are like, hey, I'm working in this job and I don't really care for it because.
Or there's a need to work from home or that flexible schedule.
That and the fact that the way that just the world is connected now, I think most people, they kind of like pull their head up and realize like there's a lot of options for you. You just have to go out and look for them. Which I feel like you have done it because you haven't like boxed yourself in a small box. You're kind of like, this is like where I'm good at and what I want to do, and my options are open. And I feel like having watched you from afar, you also kept your options open, and also I feel like maybe we're a little picky or choosy as to what you wanted to kind of go into. So kind of explain that whole scenario and what you did. And this will make more sense once Emmett starts talking about it. I promise.
So I mean, really, before tech, it came down to, had a job, was working evenings, and had my first kid and was like, what am I going to do? Mm-hmm. Like, it comes down to this point where I had this thought while I was at work, and it was like, when my kid goes to school and says, my dad does this, as a job, like, is that something I would be, like, proud about having as a title, mm-hmm. which I know most titles don't matter. You are what you decide to be, right? So basically started looking at options for ways to create a better life for my family. And it was basically like, oh, I've done coding. I've done some front end stuff from like MySpace with HTML and CSS and styling, a MySpace page back in the early 2000s. I was like, wait, people make money doing this? And then I find out that the average salary is like $100,000. And it was like, that's doable. And all you need is a laptop and internet. So there's not like, you can go to school for computer science. You can go get a degree for it. But just learning on your own at home for a couple hours a day in your free time, you can.
So, yeah, like whether it's YouTube or Google or just trial and error, and you go through. And again, most people, I think I'm kind of maybe beat the horse to death on this, but it's the idea of like, if you don't need to go to college is great for people that need to go get a degree.
If you're a doctor or a lawyer where you need
or even if you're someone that doesn't really know and you're like, I just want to be exposed to a lot of different people and different classes and kind of maybe try to feel it out. Absolutely. If you're someone like, I don't really like what college, the majors are, or what I can get, but I'm interested in X, Y, and Z. Well, go learn about X, Y, and Z and apply it. And I think one of the things that I'm kind of coming to the realization, and this, for me, and I think for, you kind of touched on it, things change in life. Like your circumstances change, your priorities change. So like if you told me like, what's my wish list or goal 5 years ago, I would say right now it's much different than it was 5 years ago. Kind of playing in the same playground, playing in the same sandbox, whatever that term is. Yeah, I'm playing in the real estate space. But one of the things, like, you kind of go and you hear and you read and you watch and you listen and, about following, like, whether it's your passion or something you're good at or whatever the case might be. I'm not necessarily, like, if someone said, are you good at real estate? I don't know if I'm good at real estate, like, any better than I'd be at, anything else. I just have learned a set of skills or some principles or, general ideas or ways of going about it that I've just molded to the real estate space. Where if you pulled me out of real estate and put me into some other field, I could use a lot of the same guiding principles and same success habits to then take that topic. Obviously, there's a learning curve to understand the nuances, but I think my learning curve in anything I went and got into, I could learn pretty quick. And, simple enough, like we have a whole different platform that we're using for like our CRMs and contact manager. And we had the other one for like 25 years.
Right.
So we get this, now it's like a whole new interface, you're learning it. And a couple months ago, I was like this, I haven't taken the time to learn it. Now I'm on it and I'm like, I just understand.
It's just as easy as the old platform.
And it took me maybe a month of like using it every day and I got it. So if you think about a learning curve, like for me to understand that in a month, and that's not like hours a day. I mean, I'm talking like just
when
you
needed the tool to use it.
Correct.
But
principles of like what caused, like, and then I start looking at this, like how can I design this and how can I use it as a tool to accomplish certain things that I've learned through being in my current industry. But then I got to the point where I'm like, I want to start developing or designing what I want my business or work career, whatever to be. But now I have a bigger, with kids and with time and energy and like all the stuff that I have not as much. You hear that?
Yeah.
I don't know you know what that's from? It doesn't come through. Like, sorry, folks, this is like a little buzzing that I'm hearing. It's like, but I don't know what it is, but it doesn't come out in the post. Like, you won't hear this I just hear like this little buzzing.
TV.
You think it's that?
Probably, yeah.
Based on this or based on just the TV itself?
Just the TV being on.
It's weird though, because this is only the second episode. This has been on for like 10 different podcasts, and this is only the second episode. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just like, I'm baffled. But so a lot of it is the idea of designing stuff the way I want it. So I think like you looked at, I'm assuming that's kind of what drew you to what you're doing now in a sense, even though it's something you do enjoy versus where you were, when you first came on the podcast or just getting out of.
Yeah. I mean, it also comes down to like, what does your ideal day look like? Mm-hmm. Where you can do that Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday or whatever, and not get tired of it. Because I think a lot of the issues especially now we're coming post-pandemic and people are realizing that like the pandemic forced them into this way of doing their day that may have not been something that they liked.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at their options and going, oh, well, I can go do this and go do this other thing that will give me, oh, I like sleeping in till whenever. It's cool. You can do that. You find a role where you can, start your day a little bit later. You're not up at the, bright and early like a lot of, influencers say that you should be to get after the day. But I think creating that life of something that you don't get tired of doing is so important.
Well, I think I always look at the flexibility. I can't work for anybody. Like I've gotten to the point, I'm kind of like, I think anybody that works for themselves, especially for a long period of time, like you don't know any different. Like I'm not saying I like ego-wise couldn't work for someone else. I just think I like having the flexibility to just turn around and do whatever I want. And I think that part of it is like, I like that portion. And then you also pick out parts of your business that you don't like. And I'm not going to go over, specific details on the air, but like there's certain things that I'm like, I really love what I do, or things of what I do. And there's things I really hate. So it's like, okay, how can you manipulate it where you only get to experience the good? And it's not like overnight, but you work towards experiencing good and offloading the bad and things like that. And obviously you saw a couple of the books I'm reading, and there's a lot of the information I'm just trying to gather and learn. And how does that apply? Like I understand it, I totally understand the concept. How can I apply it to my business? And how can I accomplish X, Y, and Z, where most of it is changing my day to day to reflect a better scenario of how I want it to be. And like you said, if that means I want to come in at 8 in the morning, or if I want to come in at 11 in the morning, it doesn't matter, but it's designed how I want it to be designed. And there's certain things that jump out at me as like, that's good, that's bad. But I think where it comes back to is because of the connectivity and everything that we can do, it doesn't necessarily mean like our business is geographically blocked, meaning I can't sell 35 minutes north of here in Canada, and I can't sell 15 minutes east of here in Vermont. Right. But I could sell in Buffalo, which I'm not saying, but like I also would never drive to Buffalo. So like it's based on certain factors. Like if we were stationed dead center in the state, you could say I have an hour rate of ballpark, whatever I'm willing to drive, maybe an hour radius.
Exactly. Right.
But now I'm like, so like our radius is actually a smaller chunk, which is fine. But then I look at, I can only, my client base or my target market
is limited.
Yeah, you have 80,000 people in Clinton County, ballpark, and then you say, okay, how many of them own a home? And that gets shrunk down. Like you might be talking.
How many people are selling a home? That number gets
correct. So like in our market, like our market in general, like we probably have, so real estate, there's a buying side and a selling side. So there might only be like say 700 sales throughout the year times 2, ballpark 1,400. We have we have way too many agents. We have like 170 agents. So you have 170 agents making up 1,400 deals. Now, granted, it's not all are equal. It's 80-20 principle. 20% are going to do all your business. And that's, so you would really argue like 30 of our agents locally do a majority of the business. But if you look at that, it's like, okay, our market is extremely saturated, which I hate. I hate that part of the business. I've been able to navigate it well and have it work in my advantage just because of hard work and getting to a certain point. But I don't like the fact that, like, same thing, like our business, the problem with, and I heard this pricing thing, Doug Buttdorf? Yeah. So Doug had this presentation, which I thought was good. It was on pricing. And he said a couple of examples, and he pulled up on the screen. He goes, okay, here's 4 different price points. What's the price point of one of the examples was a sleeve of tennis balls. And it was like 4 something, 3 something, 2 something, 7 something. And everybody in the class was like, and he picked around. Nobody really knew what it was. Right. And then another example was, he goes, what's the cost of gas right now? And he put 4 up. Everybody was like, that's how much it is. Because he goes, there's different industries of pricing. Some people understand pricing. And like, if you told me, how much does this cost? I would have no clue off the top of my mind. Right. If you said, how much does a regular cup of coffee cost? I'm probably going to be in like that high 2, low 3 mark. But I know it's not $10, it's not $1, like it's in that ballpark. Problem with real estate, we fall more in the gas than we do in the tennis ball scenario. Because people have this perception, even though...
Of this is what a house costs in my market.
Well, not even that, but like the commission aspect. So like
commission,
our
right.
market's like, okay, commission, even though legally there's no standard commission, legally it's negotiable, legally all this stuff. The problem is the perception of most people. It's like, this is the price. And I'm always like, I've been doing this for, I think, 13 years now, and I've done hundreds of transactions, is my skill set is getting paid the same as someone that is getting their first listing. In our business, because it's very tough for me to say I'm charging more than that person or vice versa, because it's so blanketed in this like...
Even
this
though you
price.
have 13, 15 years more experience than somebody just got their license.
Like if I went through and I said, okay, the better agents in our market, they are now at a different level. So to work with those agents, you have to pay a premium to work with better agents because they've earned it. They understand. They have a lot more knowledge. But our industry this is one thing I dislike, is like our industry is kind of in this box of like, this is what it costs. Because then all of a sudden, if you go higher and people are like, no, not going to use you. But then you're like, but you're going to give the money to this person who doesn't have as much. I'm not saying they're a bad agent, but may not have all the skill set, where someone in a different field, you could say, well, you're paying a premium because they're more skilled, more years, whatever. So that's something I also dislike about our industry, is that no matter what skill set, it's like the ceiling on pricing, because there's so many options. People are like, well, I'll go with one of the other 150 because they're charging me a little bit less. And that's the problem in our business, is everybody's wired like that. So what I'm getting at is, like, when you're designing stuff around, in certain demographics and certain businesses, like, those are things like I would dislike. So in my head, I'm like, how do we find ways around this?
Right.
Where, like, in the tech space, do you find there's as much limitations on that kind of stuff, or do you find that's more open-ended?
I mean,
Kind of like the gas price scenario, the tennis ball scenario.
yeah. I mean, it also comes down to like what, you may start using a product that's, say $10 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, okay, this is pretty good. And then you have an issue. Then you need to reach out to support. What if their support's terrible?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they never answer your questions. They never get back to you. You still have this issue.
An Autobot, or
An Autobot, or they just straight up don't
ignore you,
or don't have time or they're so busy they don't have time to get back to you to make that, to build that connection with your customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you find a product that's, even like $100 a month, but their support is incredible. Like, as soon as you hit, you'll have people go to that $100 product just because the product may not be, maybe a little bit worse than the $10 a month product. But if the support and the people there to help you with your problems are responsive, like, there's people that will jump for that $100 product because it just makes their life easier.
It's convenience.
It's convenience.
It saves time.
It saves time. And you're going to, I'm coming around now to like thinking, like, in personal life, is like, where can we spend a little extra money to take some of the things off our plate, to make it so it's like we don't have to think about it.
So that book that was on my desk, the Buy Back Time book, he goes into that pretty hard, and I think it's pretty fascinating stuff. So he goes into that pretty hard, and it's like, he even goes down to, he has a house manager, because what most people think about when they think about offloading stuff, and he talks about it, it's like, you think your business, but he goes, how many things do you have just in your day-to-day that just take up time? Either stresses you out, or takes up time, or you're not good at, or whatever the case might be. Right. And he said, I got a house manager. Like, they pick up groceries, they bring our cars, get our cars washed, they pay our bills, they do like all the stuff that everybody has to do in their life, but it's the stuff that takes up time. So like, I'm even looking at the same, like, what jumps out to you, either from a home or professional thing, where you're like, this would be something I would love to outsource?
No, I mean, there's dad of 3 kids, the laundry laundry is an ever going battle, right?
Yep.
Yard maintenance.
Yep.
I know people that have personal chefs that come in and cook they bulk cook for them for the week, and then that's what they eat for the week. And saves on groceries. It saves on time to think of what are we gonna have for dinner tonight. That decision right there, every night at like 4:30, I'm like, what are we doing for dinner?
Would that be your biggest one?
No. I mean, it's a big one, but I don't think that's the biggest one that is probably. I mean, it's like groceries and what's for dinner is like.
Well, I think I'd be the same. If you said which one could you outsource, lawn maintenance. This is the thing with lawn maintenance. I don't physically mind doing it. It's just
You have time though?
But that's the thing. It's like, I got to take the time to go do it. Where if I could say I could offload it, but then the other two things I'm going to end up doing are I'm chilling at home either with the kids or I'm doing something I prefer to do, or all else fails, I can. Well, would you bring it in? Which one is it? Is it?
It's the one they had at Mickey's.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I would drink it slow.
Oh, is this the double? Thank you. Did you get one for yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get two for yourself?
No, there's one in the fridge for you for later.
Okay. Thank you. Shout out to Jen. So. Oh yeah, this is the one I saw. Oh yeah. Okay. Nice. But basically, when you end up, I would say the food thing is probably the one that, like, we had someone. It's not every day. We usually do once a week, and they bring food once a week. And what I found is like, okay, they bring food. A, it's good.
Yeah.
So that's obviously number one. Like, it's not bad food, so it's good food. Number two, she typically will drop it off at her house. Every once in a while, we'll pick it up there. But if we really wanted to, she would drop it off every time. Just depends on where we are.
Right.
So she'll drop it off. So then I look at, okay, that's number one. So one, it tastes good. Two, it's delivered to us. There's no meal prep.
No
cleanup.
No
Very
cleanup.
minimal cleanup.
Well, it's plates, silverware, forks.
Yes, it's very minimal. There's no cooking stuff. Like, worst case, you take it out of like a big
Like a
serving
hotel,
tray.
a hotel pan, yeah.
Yeah, like a serving tray, and you put it in just like smaller Tupperware and put it in the fridge. Like, that's the extent of it at the end of the day. Easy cleanup, easy, tastes good, easy to eat. The other thing is that food, at least in our family because the kids are young right now, that food will last us easily 3 days. So as long as you don't mind eating leftovers, which I don't care. I grew up just eating leftovers. I will bring that to lunch the next day. I'll have it the following day for dinner, and maybe I'll get one more lunch out of it on the third day.
Right.
And this is like with me and my wife both chipping away at this. So I look at that.
But
Price
that's 3
includes
days. That's 3 days worth of mental.
also
energy.
You don't have to get the groceries for that because like it's all done. It's just like, so when you box it up, in my head it's like, in theory, instead of saying like no we gotta cook, it's something you have to cook, blah blah blah, because you just think society wise looks down on you if you don't cook.
Or to take your Sunday, make that meal the same size portion, then do all of that cleanup Sunday night. Your Sunday's spent.
Yeah, well, this is like, I like cooking, and I like, for me, if it was like Sunday and I want to grill or cook or do something, and I had like,
I feel like that's different though.
It's
the mental energy of like, this is food for the week.
yeah,
Right.
or I get home today on like a Thursday and I'm like, did you cook? No. Okay, what do we want to try to do? And you throw something together, and you're right. It goes from, it's now 5:00 and you wrap up at 7. Maybe because you're cleaning up and stuff, and we have kids, so it's like even more advanced. They're not putting their own dishes away.
6:30 shows up, no dinner yet. Well,
Yeah.
you got bedtime, you got all of that stuff.
Now everything's getting pushed back. And so in my mind, that would be number one because it's every day. Yard work I look at too, as I don't really care to do it.
Also depends on how big your property is and all that. But
Like in mine's under an acre, but it's enough where you got to like mow it. And like right now I got grubs and I'm like putting grub seed out. And in my head I'm like, one, I don't understand yard stuff enough. Like if I could have someone maintain my yard all year, meaning you come up and you put the regular seed when it should be in, you put the stuff on the hedges when it should be, because
putting green in the backyard and
yeah, exactly.
maintain it
Just water it extra, cut it with clippers. But as you go through, like that would be something because someone has the knowledge where like my grass doesn't look dead and my shrubs, which we have really nice, like a hedgerow, doesn't look crappy. But if I like, that would be number one, and then probably someone to do the grocery cooking. And because the food lasts for days, like you really could get away with probably it only twice a week.
Twice a week.
Which might be like a Monday, Wednesday, and that would get you to the weekend. And typically I find weekends are a little easier because you're out somewhere, you eat out, or you have more time to prep. Like when you come, like we're the same way. You get done dinner or get done work, you pick the kids up, you're kind of scrambling, and I don't even have kids in sports or anything like that or extracurriculars.
Right, yeah.
But you're like evenings, like all over the place, and I find that at least in my life, like weekends, we have more time to like prep and plan. Even if it's not right before the meal, you could be prepping something at 1 p.m.
to get ready to throw in at 4:30
Correct,
and be
yeah.
ready for dinner. Yeah.
And I don't find it's as bad, and you're already home, and you're kind of like in a more lax mood, so you might be like, whether a game's on TV or listening to the radio or just talking to a spouse or something, but you're not really doing much, and it's fine. Like when you get home and you're just like a million things in your mind, depending on what's going on, sometimes that just feels more rushed than just like a chill thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I would say the food would be number one.
Food.
And then number two for me would be some type of year-long maintenance, which I would even say like snow blowing. Like I don't mind the act of snow blowing. I go on, I put Joe Rogan podcast on, and I snow blow. It takes me a half hour. Like to me, it's like therapeutic, but it's just the act of like carving the time out to go do it. It's not the physical act of doing it. It's like, crap! Like it's gonna snow tonight. I got to get up early to make sure
Or it's not even the like, because the weather up here, you'll just wake up and it wasn't supposed. If you weren't paying attention to the weather,
I should say I don't pay attention to the weather.
Yeah.
Usually my wife's like, it's gonna snow tonight. I'm like, oh okay, I'll make sure like snowblower's ready to go.
Right, but there's also that time where it's like you didn't think of the bad weather, you slept in for some reason, your alarm didn't go off, and then it's like I have a meeting at 8:30.
I can't get out of my driveway.
At 8:00.
So I think that would be the best one. Like I mean, from that standpoint. So you would also agree the food would be number one.
Food, yeah.
I think just because you eat every day. I don't mow the lawn every day. So like that would be number one. But I think like you said, even laundry or grocery or errand pickup or just random stuff. Because as crazy as it sounds, like I use it in my own business too. Like I sometimes will go out I usually bring food. If I don't bring food or I don't have some lunch scheduled with somebody, I then have to go out and get food. And a lot of times I'll send someone from the office to get food because I'm like in the middle of a workflow and I'm like, I just don't want to go. Like I want to that's why I like stuff here. I can go to the bathroom quick, go down, grab my food, come back. I can do I can leave my office like one time and do everything and then I'm back in my office, eat at my desk, and then I'm right into work for the afternoon.
Right.
So I like minimal downtime because I like packing stuff all in, and because again, I'm trying to be way more efficient and effective.
Because your time is limited.
It's very limited, but one of the things I've been getting better at, and it wouldn't necessarily show, like in our business, obviously people look at like sales. Like my sales are down from last year, which were down from the year before, but I've had to put focus on certain things that aren't necessarily bringing me in business now.
There's no positive. You're not seeing revenue being brought in by that action you did today.
Currently.
So
so this is where I kind of look at what my focus has been the last like 18 months to 24 months is as things get crazier, kids, just
Sports.
life. Well, just life in general.
Yeah.
I mean, just your time's sucked,
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I can't keep up the same actions that I was doing 3 years ago, which resulted in very good results in my business. But I knew longevity-wise, I couldn't maintain that without ruining my health or ruining my family. Like, so it's like you had to like there was
you can't sprint the marathon.
Correct, exactly. Yeah. And there was like a tipping point where I'm like, okay, not that anything bad was happening, but I could tell like
starting to feel a little something
high
needs to
anxiety
change.
and stuff, and like things are just too crazy. But I also was like, okay, something's got to change because this trajectory is not going to end well. And it wasn't like I was near the peak of that. I was like very low, but I'm like, this is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And I'm like, the only way to do it, like I'm not going to have, I could probably do this sprint for a few months, but by next quarter I'll be like burnt out. And so I was like, that's not good either. So then I was like, okay, what do I got to do? So I've been focusing on not the amount of hours, but more on the, like focusing on the right stuff.
The core tasks.
The main priorities, the main like essential things I should do that, but right now, those don't necessarily equal like a production dollar revenue standpoint one for one. What they're doing is they're building out for me systems, processes, automation, a lot of leveraged activity that's going to, like that guy, buy my time back. So now I can go even harder, but I can go harder with a much more effective, efficient system, which will then give me, I won't have to work as many hours as I did before. I'll probably work a quarter of those hours, but I will be at the same level or better than where I was before. But what I've done is I'm putting a lot of emphasis on my input now leading to time back and leading to having more freedom of time. Because then once that happens, which if it all works out, we're getting close to it, that time that I'm now able to build back into my existence and have free are going to go into direct revenue generation or higher level generation. So when I look at how you're building that system out, so it's like what you put focus on too. So like, I think that's the big difference now from a few years ago.
Yeah.
But it's like taking a step back to build out something to go up to like the next level. I'm hoping that's the case, and it should be. But it's the same thing. It's like sometimes you just have to like pause, step back, and almost like step off stage kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Do a bunch of work and then come back.
Well, there's this whole saying in tech where it was slow is fast, which is counterintuitive, but it means like there are times where you have to go. There are times where you have to sprint, right?
Do you want some or no?
No, hold on. So, there's times where you have to sprint and have to get, a whole bunch of tasks done that are all time sensitive. They have to get done by Friday. Okay, they're going to get done by Friday. Mm-hmm. But then when you have this time to look back and go, where are we going to be in, 12 to 18 months? I need to take these next 3 months and focus on processes and how I'm doing my day-to-day, do that audit of, I'm spending, you're spending time stuck in traffic or whatever, It's like, that's time you don't get back. Or if you're doing stuff that you absolutely can't stand doing, food, laundry, yard work, it's like if I could get that hour back to go do a task that in 6 months is going to pay for, a year's worth of landscaping and food delivery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then sometimes you have to slow down and look at what you're doing every day and look at, where are you spending your time? Where can I make changes? And then hopefully those changes that you make are, ROI positive.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the things I had down that's, and obviously this can go way more drastic, but I look a lot at like the 80-20 principle, and I look a lot at like in our business, when you start off, you work a disproportionate amount of hours to what you get paid when you first start off. It's commission based, you're hustling, you're like doing a lot of work for no money, and you're building up some like, industry currency, kind of like social currency, like you to build your name up and things. And then you finally get to a tipping point where your actual out or input to the business, you get paid way more than you put in.
Right.
At a certain point. It takes a long time to get to that level. So my thought is like, okay, how and then you get to the point where you kind of get to that level, and that's where I was. I was like, okay, this is great, but two things are going to happen. The biggest one being I'm just going to be bored silly, which I know sounds bad, but if I like building onto stuff. So when you get to a certain point, you're like, I kind of tap this out. Like I really can't improve on this. I can't work more hours. I really can't produce more in that time. I mean, I could, but with the current systems, I couldn't.
Right.
So that's when I was like, okay, now it gets fun. It's risky, but it's fun. It's like, because you're building it. It's like, how can you then keep adding the X to the output? So in this case, maybe revenue or whatever that end unit is. How do you keep, multiplying that, but then your input, your hours in, keep decreasing? So my thought now is, how do I go from maybe working 40 hours for something down to how do I work 30 hours a week, but now that what I'm producing or my revenue is double, how do I go down to 20 hours and now that is now double? And how do I go down to 10 hours or less a week, but now like that output's now double on top of that? So now I'm making 8x the output, but I'm putting in 1/4 the input, something along those lines.
Right.
That's where I'm really trying to work right now, not because I want to work a few hours a week and not do anything, but I'm like, I want to either, because again, I'll be bored. I want to spend that time with my family, or I want to turn around and take that, or spend my time with family, but then instead of working all those hours, try to build something else
do
with those
something
hours.
else, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's like where I don't want to stop the building process because it's fun, because it's like a puzzle.
Right.
And I feel like you're the same way. It keeps you thinking. Like if you didn't think, you'd be bored.
Right.
Like you want to challenge. So, but I look at the framework of like you have to take a step back, redo some systems, break some, like the models have to change in your systems and processes and everything else. But the ultimate goal is like effectiveness and efficiency. So I'm working on the right things. I'm working on the right things efficiently, knowing that those are going to have the biggest output versus like, sometimes like email stuff or something. Like I've checked my email once today, and I've gotten better at that. Like I check my email once a day, just because you'll see that like nothing's there, and
That's an inbox zero.
yeah.
That's,
And I used to never get that, and I have that 90% of my day is inbox zero, because I go through everything that will pop up. I'll look at it once a day. I delete everything, and then I take care of what I need to take care of, and 99% of the time, most emails not urgent. So like to me, it's like you do it at one shot, and I can usually get through all my emails in like 20 minutes a day, if that.
right.
But I don't have the task switching, so it's like.
But that took you how long to get there?
Oh, a while. But it started to get to the overwhelming part where it wasn't just the email, but it was like everything. So it's like, does that buy me back time? Well, it buys me back the task switching. It buys me back. Every time you look at the email and check it, you're now taking it away from something else, task switching. So I'm like, if I just do it 20 minutes a day, well, it's true 20 minutes. It's like dive in, go through everything, completely finish it all out, and then I'm out.
Close the tab.
And 20 minutes have gone, and that's my day, and then I'll do it again tomorrow. Because again, I haven't gotten in trouble with not responding to an email that came in 2 hours ago. Right. It really is not I've learned in our business, 99% of problems in our business are self-fabricated by individuals because they're not patient,
right?
Or they're unrealistic. And
you're selling houses. It's not like going to the store and buying dinner, right?
Well, it's not like I'm producing surgery on someone, like
right.
So, but I also look at in our business, majority of problems in our business that people complain or whatever about is in the closing process. The closing process is a very bank attorney driven process. Banks and attorneys close shop at 4:30, 5 o'clock every day. So if I'm getting emails at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night about that,
there's nothing can do
happen
until the next day. And it's a bank holiday tomorrow. So guess what? That 6 p.m. email.
Well, I mean, and then this is also, we have leverage in the sense that we have a full-time staff person that takes care of closing stuff. So like I'm also leveraging out via people, but also leveraging out with just attention.
But even just a time thing, you get an email at 6 p.m. The day before a bank holiday, wondering if when this is closing, you're not going to know until that bank holiday is over.
Yeah, and
So you're talking 48 hours later before you even that email really even matters.
well, like so Friday afternoon, I paused my inbox till Sunday morning at 9. So it was almost 48 hours. Like nothing came to my inbox, blocked, which is what it is right now. And I only do it because Sunday morning I plan my week out. So I like break everything down. I what's the most important things I gotta do this week, and I have a whole system on Sundays that I do. So I usually unpause my inbox because I want to see everything that comes in, so I can just purge through it really quick, get it out, and then I can organize my week and say, okay, I'm good. Basically, a reset button. Let's go into Monday. And then I had no phone. Like 2/3 of the day Sunday, I just left my phone in my room the entire day, and I read 100 pages of a book. I hung out with my kids. I did a bunch of stuff, none of it involving any outside stuff from the outside world, which on a Sunday's nothing,
Right.
which is great, or nothing urgent. And then you look at your phone at the end of the day, and it's like a couple messages and a couple things, none of them are urgent. Like, so I mean, it's just, but a lot of it is just putting those boundaries out. So that's what something I'm really into now is like, how do I simplify my life, but design it in a way that I can really work on stuff I want to work on, not just
Because
moving for the sake of moving.
if you had notifications on your email, right, on, sound on, all of this stuff, same thing with your phone. If you had every phone notification turned on your phone, you would be looking at your phone 90% of the day.
Yep.
Because your text messages, your emails, your social media, your all of that stuff, every comment you get on social media, if you had an alert for that,
Yeah.
you're stuck on your phone. And when is this core work that we're trying to get done?
I think you can you would know. You have an Apple?
Yeah.
Can't
Do
you
not disturb.
well, mine I always put on that, which some people don't like because it goes right to voicemail. But like right now, so right now it's on Do Not Disturb, and I got 7 text messages. But I look at like I haven't heard any of them come in. But if you go down here, like Do Not Disturb, you can set these where they only show certain apps, right?
Yep.
So I got to get better at that.
So you could set it to just be only let my
You mean like favorites?
yeah, you could have it just so your spouse is the only one that can call you during these times.
I have that. So I have a very small list of people on this list. Like it's family, very close. Like I have 7 people on here, 8 people. I have 8 people on here that minus my immediate family that could call through. It's a very small group, and those people typically don't call me all the time. So it's not
and if they do, it's a big deal, and you're going to pick up.
or it's just a really good
Right.
like close friend of mine that I'm like, hey, what's up, man? Like,
Right.
and it's really like a call that I can also be like, okay, I got to get off the phone.
Right.
If I had to, but there's certain people that like you like talking to during the day. So I would say most of the people I would love to have call me during the day and talk to me are on my favorites.
Right.
But it's like the app stuff. So even if you get pulled into checking
You open
Facebook
you
or
open
Instagram.
Instagram once to see how that posted, and
Yeah.
then
and you can get sucked in.
you can get sucked in. So you can set time limits for that. So you could be like, I'm going to let myself scroll Instagram for 10 minutes a day. The minute that 10 minutes is up, it locks you out of the app. And then next time you open it, it goes, nope, it's not going to, it pop-up shows up. You've hit your limit.
So do you scroll a lot? I mean, you're on like obviously like LinkedIn throughout the day and stuff, but
LinkedIn, Twitter, yeah.
Do you
There's-
find that you're sucked into that a lot, where you scroll or consume a lot?
I consume a lot, but it's also, I also view it as networking,
Yep.
which is very hard to put a limit on, because as we both know, like you never know where a conversation online or in person is going to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, you're a prime example too.
yeah, it's literally like am I on social too much? Probably, but I view it as ways that will build your career if you do it carefully.
So what's your main one that you're on? Is it more Twitter?
More Twitter.
How's Twitter different? So when Twitter first came out, when was Twitter? 05, 06?
Something like that.
I first got on Twitter, I'm going to say sometime maybe around 2010, 11, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
Um,
But still pretty early days.
Still pretty
Twitter.
early,
Yeah.
maybe even 9, but I think it was like, let's say 2010, 11. And I was pretty active on it. And I ended up falling out of it. I forgot what year, but I started to get out of it when it was more, I found that a lot of the posts were like shared posts. And I just got to the point where, like, if I'm following 300 accounts, I want it just to come from those 300 accounts. And like, if you shared something, that's fine, you know, but then I found like if I was getting like,
You were seeing stuff that from people you didn't follow, and
you know, it got too
didn't
much.
yeah.
And I was trying like, and that's what I find a lot on Instagram too. You start to get these sponsored, these
everything's
posts
sponsored, everything's ad based,
or suggested posts.
yeah.
And I don't know how many times I've gone on and deleted like, don't show me suggested posts, and the next hour I have suggested, it doesn't go away. But I find if I'm actually following people or businesses or pages or whatever, I only want to see the content from those people.
So there are few apps, probably people you don't follow are on them, but there's a thing called Mastodon, which is like Twitter,
Okay.
but there's no algorithm. So it just shows posts of the people you follow, and there's no ads.
So are you on that or just Twitter?
So I'm on that. I'm on Twitter, Mastodon, and then Jack Dorsey, the original CEO of Twitter, started this new thing called Blue Sky, which is it's a Twitter clone.
Okay.
Right now it's invite only, but it's an interesting time because Twitter has had a rough 6 to 12 months since Elon has taken over, and it's just really interesting. But I totally agree with you. Like seeing, like I don't want to see ads for products I don't care about just because it's a sponsored post that somebody like. If I'm not interested in it, I don't want to see it.
When I come from the business space, like that's just going to happen with anything. Anything that starts off free they're going to go to sponsors. It's just a matter
Absolutely,
of attention.
absolutely.
I just got to the point, like, I don't scroll that often on stuff. Like, I've gotten even better away from, there's a couple months ago, I'd say probably 2 months ago, I was going on and I'd open up Instagram and I would scroll down through, not long, I mean, I'd scroll down for 30 seconds tops. But in that 30 seconds, it'd be like 3 or 4 posts. I'm like, oh, what's this? And I'm thinking it's from a page I follow. And then I look at it, and it took me a second to say, like, then it said, like, the follow.
Right.
But it was a suggested post. And then I didn't catch it at first. I just kept watching. I'm like, why am I I keep watching these. Like, why? I just find that I'm watching more, like, random little videos than I ever have in my life. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, these aren't even stuff I'm following. It might be the same genre. It might be a golf thing, or it might be... You know,
it's a golf creator that somehow is linked to a PGA video you watch.
Or I follow, some business person, and next thing I know, I'm getting these weird business ads. And sometimes they're good; they lead you to people that you've never heard of. But more times than not, it's like I don't actually want to.
You're better at controlling the algorithm for stuff you want to see than an algorithm.
Yes, and I'm not saying the algorithm's bad. Like, if you open it up, there's like a lot of golf stuff. Like it's something that I like looking at. Or there's a lot of business stuff too. I have a lot of like Ray Dalio, and you'll have like real estate guys, and then you'll have Tim Ferriss, and then you'll have Dan Martell. Like you have all these people that are on there. And in my head, I'm like, I just want to see. Like I actually did a purge down to like, I probably took off 80% of the things I was following. And honestly, I got to go. Like I would love to get down to like 50.
Right.
And it's like, what do I actually like value if it comes through? And like, if I saw that person's post or not, would it? And some of it's research. I follow a couple real estate people purely for
research and
for just like being aware.
keeping your right.
Not that I'm doing it or want to do it or really even care about that person. It's just like I respect what they're doing, and I want to see kind of how they're doing, and can I replicate it on our level versus like something in New York City or LA
Right.
or something.
Absolutely right.
So I have some of those where I'm like, I really don't care to follow it, but I need to. I don't need to.
But I mean,
it's
that's sort of me with Twitter and
probably a lot of
and,
stuff you
and
follow.
LinkedIn is like there's a new tech framework coming out every 6 weeks, and it's like, oh well, that's neat, and then not necessarily that I'm going to go build my next thing or project in this new tech, but it's like that's available. Mm-hmm. It's like learning about tools, right? Like what tools are out there to help my job become easier. And also it comes through with like also just supporting the people that are building these new, these new tech frameworks or these new companies or products. It's like, if you support them, eventually when you need help or they hire, they're going to go, oh, this person's been following me from the beginning. Let's bring them into the team. It's it comes down to a lot of like, it's back to the networking. It's like, yes, it looks like I'm just scrolling on my phone. But if I'm having conversations that get me a job in 6 months or a year, that's double my current salary. That's a win.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly sort of that's where I am now.
What do you think? So, since how many different startups have you been at? And is the one you currently at considered that, or you think they're a little more established?
So it's technically 2 startups. I would say KnoCommerce is a startup, but they got acquired last year.
Okay.
But it's still sort of startup mentality. We're 11 people. So small team doing big things. But yeah, I mean, startups are hard because it comes down to, there's really 2 ways to build a tech business. It's bootstrap, where you're using your own money, or you get venture capital. You get an investor to invest.
Take a chance. VC,
yeah, and take but then it's also...
But you're giving up equity, right?
You're giving up equity, but you're giving up equity in some crazy stat. It's like 95% of startups fail. So, like, the VC is probably going to lose their money. But it's one of those things. It's like, one, do you have the skills to do it yourself? Can you do the marketing, the design, and build the product? If you can do that while you work another job, right? Mm-hmm. And it can become a side hustle. There's this whole community called indie hackers, which is independent software builders that build really incredible businesses that have, like, there's an enough number, right? Which is an interesting thing when you think about business. You think about hustling and making millions of dollars in revenue and all this stuff, but it's like, it comes back to, if I can build a product that people will pay for, and I can get down to a way to where I work, 20 hours a week on it, and then go do whatever else I want, to have that space of breath of like, yeah, I'm going to go take today off because there's some event happening and I can do that. That's another way. And I think bootstrapping is a really interesting way of building a business.
I mean, I think the like in a different realm, because I've never been like a startup kind of thing. You've been running, a business, and trying to improve it and do stuff. And I'd say a lot of it's like kind of grassroots and like not as, pumping money in. It's more of like effort and strategy and things like that, which I've always, I remember even as like a kid trying to figure stuff out, but not, I want to say like underdog, but not, I wouldn't say the favorite kind of thing. It's like a Rocky scenario. Like Rocky Rocky fighting Ivan Drago. Like Drago's in the state of the art thing, and Rocky's running through the snow with carrying like an oxen like board around it. You know what I mean? Like just like lifting wheelbarrows and like old school. Still working, not as glamorous, not as comfortable. He's not walking across and taking a shower in the state of the art locker room at this gym. He's literally going this crappy little like cabin out in the woods, and he's freezing. But the people that overcome that become scrappier, become better, become whatever. Like I think one of the things like I look in our business, like I wasn't handed really anything in our business. Like I self-taught myself, and like, yes, my dad's in it, but I don't think I wasn't like handheld through the process.
Right.
It was very much, I was kind of like throwing you in the deep end, figure it out. You have questions, let me know, but you're kind of on your own. Like not on your own, like I'm not going to help you, but like figure it out. I don't ask for help that well, or I'm not good at asking for help. So I'm just like, all right, I'll just do it.
Right.
And I'll just learn it. Which has its limitations. It works. It's like, I would say it's a bootstrappy kind of thing. It's like you figure it out, but I like the strategy of it. I like, okay, right. I don't have all the resources. I don't have an unlimited checkbook. I don't have unlimited time. Let me see what I can do with the time I have or the money that I have. And I would say now it's the same game, but way more, or way less
anxiety inducing.
Well, no. Way less. The boundaries or the pillars or the rules of the game I'm playing now aren't as flexible as they were when I was a single guy with no kids. There's really no boundaries when you're a single person. Right. Like you can do whatever you want for the most part. I now don't have those. So now my thing is like the pillars that are up, that are boundaries, like these are, here's the rules of the game, but these are 3 or 4 things that like laws that can't be broken kind of thing.
Right.
Now I'm playing amongst that. So like I feel like I've leveled up the game, like for video game talk.
Right.
I've like leveled up the game. So now it's harder in certain things, but because it's harder, it's making me think better, and it's because I have less options. So I'm really looking at, okay, I'm now trying to figure this out, not by brute, like ramming my head against the wall.
Breaking the wall down.
It's like sitting, thinking, processing, reflecting, trying to get.
It's a chess move rather than run at the wall.
Rather than Red Rover run through the arms. Like,
right.
You're playing chess. So I'm like, so it's a lot more strategy. And I found that my strategic thinking, which I always would consider a fairly good strong suit of mine, has leveled up because I'm having to make way more thought provoking or whatever, thought inducing moves, and a lot of them are like it's tough to explain, but they're way more mentally taxing.
Right.
I didn't think this hard 5 years ago. Like and what I'm saying is like it was like autopilot. Like I really don't think about real estate. It doesn't take a lot of effort for me to think about it because I've been doing it for so long that you learn some little things.
It's muscle memory.
Yeah.
And that's all there. And that's part of anything as you grow in a career for long enough is, here are the 10 tasks that you could probably do in your sleep. Mm-hmm. But now it's like, now when you're thinking about like infrastructure questions or like, where's the next move?
Or scalability or processes,
or we need to hire people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, well, before you're just like, I'll do it. I'll do that job.
Well, then from a hiring standpoint, it's like, okay, do you want a person? Do you want a virtual assistant? Do you want AI? Do you want part-time? Do you want per diem? Do you want someone do you outsource to a third party? Like, then you start dealing with like personalities, and then you start dealing with, okay, what's the cost versus how much can they do?
Or
versus,
is there an application that I can purchase? Is there a software piece that I could buy that would save me? You know, is it a software and a person piece that will level up on the software, and I will just, you know, and their job is to use the software to give me the answers I need to get back my time.
Yes, and I think that's the challenge, but I love it. Like it's very mentally taxing, but it's thought provoking, and it keeps me keeps me on my toes a bit. Where it's like, okay, I'm learning these things, and it's challenging, but it's the challenge that I like because it's going to stress you out. It's going to bring on some it's just hard.
Right.
Like if it's easy, it's easy. Like it's hard, then it's like, but I really want it kind of thing. So I'm like, I'm going to basically slam my head against this problem until I figure it out. Or if, but eventually it's like you keep looking at the same problem, look at the same problem, or come back to it or whatever in your different headspace and you figure it out. It's like an aha moment. But the amount of even just random thoughts that I've had recently where I'm like, whoa, let me not lose that thought. Let me write it down. Let me send it to myself. And now I have it. Let me there's something to that. Let me see if I can move it around, and how will that reflect in?
Or hey, I wrote down this idea twice.
Yeah,
maybe there's something there. Maybe I should look into it.
Like I mean, this is, I call it a Sunday folder. I have so many random things in this that are like thought that I'm like, these are stuff that I want to do that might be simple, or things like I like how that person did it. But they're all here. And so it's kind of like a folder that I just kind of have there that I come back to every once in a while, or questions where I'm like, that's a very, like one of my favorite guys is Tim Ferriss. And one of the questions he says in 4-Hour Work Week, but he said it before, was like, okay, say you have a bad, medical condition, and the doctor has said you cannot work more than 2 hours a day. You cannot. Like, this will be bad if you work more than 2 hours a day. What are you doing? And what it does is it makes you think, okay, wow, okay, I only have 2 hours. Like, your mind instantly goes to what's the most important thing.
Right.
You're not doing everything. You're doing the most essential thing. And then he goes one step further. And then he said, okay, let's say you have a really bad diagnosis and you can only work 2 hours a week. That's all the energy you have is 2 hours a week. What are you doing in those 2 hours? So then you start looking at what's the biggest way that for scale, or what do I have to have in place where I only work 2 hours a day? It's kind of like Warren Buffett, reads 80% of the day. I think he reads 6 to 8 hours a day.
Right.
Reads reports, reads different financial reports, or just reads books. That's his job. His job is to think and then produce something.
Right.
And so then it's kind of like, okay, what's the biggest, for him, that's what scales him the most. So that was some of these bigger questions that cause you to think out of the box. It's like, oh, wow, that's, I don't know. Another one that I got it, I think it was him or someone else. They said, what's your 10-year goal? And I go, okay, my 10-year goal, think about it. Oh, God, I don't know, it's pretty like this. I go, okay, do it in 6 months. And then your mind's like, wait, what? No way. But what? Just think about it.
No, it's 100% true. I mean, there's the whole thing of you will fill up 80% of the time. If we look back at us in college, okay, you have this project due at the end of the semester.
Oh, Parkinson's law.
Yeah.
Yeah, you fill the time.
You are not starting your final project day one of the semester. Mm-hmm. Would it probably be beneficial if you did? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, it's 11 o'clock. This thing's due at 8 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah, you're going to have it done.
You're going to have it done.
Or if they came and told you, hey, Emmett, here's the project. It's due tomorrow. Be like, wait, what? Be like, it's due tomorrow. Oh,
it's 80% of your grade.
And then guess what? You'll have it done by tomorrow.
Right.
Because it's people will fill that time. It's just their deadlines, it's urgency is what you like. So I'm also trying to utilize that a little bit of giving myself harder deadlines. Okay, you got to edit these amount of videos, or not even edit. Actually, back to what I want to outsource. Editing is one of the things I'm looking at outsourcing coming up soon.
Right.
But today, I'm building out different things that require me to do videos. Like, it requires me, like, I'm the only one in the office that can do these videos. So I sit and I'm doing these screen record videos. They're not polished, so one take. Like, I mess up, don't care. I'm like, go. Like, it's a 5-minute video. I'm teaching you how to do something. Pause, move off. Because what I'm doing is I'm now leveraging that training, that whatever that is, off my plate to buy that time back.
Right.
And
Well, you have that 5-minute video when somebody goes, oh, hey, how do you get this thing into, the spreadsheet? You go, boom, here's a video.
Yeah.
And it works the same for blog posts. It works the same for form video where you're doing screen shares, where you're showing them how to work around a product. Mm-hmm. And like there have been times where I've gone, how do I code this? How do I build this little feature? Oh, here's a blog post that I wrote 2 years ago on how to do this. And like, you're not even, this even goes from like posting them online, sharing them, is like, I don't know who else is getting, if one other person is getting value from something that you put out online, that's a win. And it may come back to you questioning, how do I do this thing? And then you find, oh, right, I wrote a blog post on it. You go do it, and then, so like, that saves you time.
Well, I also, like, I'm pretty resourceful in finding stuff, but what I want to get better at is, like, perfect example. How do I, like, I know you've worked with, like, Shopify and things like that.
Yeah.
If I'm like, how to set up a Shopify account, I can YouTube, there's probably 1,000 videos on how to set up a Shopify account. I watch a bunch. I'm like, I think this is good, blah, 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 go through it. And one, I have the time. I have the energy involvement.
Right.
And maybe financially, if there's any financial things, most people put the time in because of the financial aspect.
Right. Absolutely.
But if you're like, listen, like, I know Emmett could have this up and running for me tomorrow. I don't have to lift a finger. I have to make a phone call or a text, and he's going to be able to pull it off or whatever the timeline takes you to do it. But all those hours to do it, I don't have to do. So, perfect example, we've built out a bunch of processes and systems and behind the scenes things that are going to leverage myself and everybody else here. But I end up having to build those out. The problem with that, it was very much information driven that I have in my head, which is tough because I can't just be like, Emmett, build this out for me. Like, sure, but like I need your like
I need the data part. I need the like core, like if you're gonna say write a blog post on the top 3 things you need to know about real estate in 2023. Mm-hmm. If I don't know those things,
yes,
like I'm gonna need some information to be able to curate a post or whatever.
Or this is how to like navigate some systems on the back end,
right?
So like, but I couldn't just turn to some company or turn to some person and say, build this all. Like, hey, I want you to build out every single one of our systems, and I want you to have a whole training module in every single system that we use, so it's at the tip of everybody's fingers, and they don't have to think about it. They don't have to ask questions. It's there.
Right.
Normally, you'd be like, I mean, hey, man, I can build, like, the platform out and build all the little tabs or whatever. I don't know the information to stick in there. So what happened was, I had to do the information part, which takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time I have the information. It's a matter of pulling it out of your brain, organizing it, condensing it down, and making it digestible to somebody else to take on. Meaning, like, I'm so deep in the weeds at times, like in my brain, that I'm like, okay, let me just strip this down to the basic stuff. And how do I present it where someone new, where someone that doesn't have that knowledge base can learn it? But that takes a lot of time. But for me, setting up a Shopify account, which doesn't take a lot of knowledge, in the sense of like, you don't need a lot of my knowledge to set it up. I'd be like, hey, Shopify, I want to sell this, this, and this, and I don't know, here's the products, and like, go ahead. You'd be like, it's done.
Right.
But I'm saying that you took away all the time, and someone said, so like, you take the time out, you take the energy capacity out, and you increase the accuracy. Accuracy meaning you know what you're doing, and I'm hacking my way through it.
And there's not a second or third iteration on, oh, we didn't do this right the first time, we have to go back.
Correct.
Because that Not that that doesn't happen, but you will save a lot of time if you can limit iterations.
Yeah, so this is where I'm at now. It's that if I'm looking to do something, how do I get that done by not using my own time? Which basically means hiring people that know what they're doing. Hiring out, someone to do the work, or if it's something I need to do, and it could be something I want to learn too.
Right.
Like the other day, I did some electrical work at my house. I could have hired it and been lazy and just said, I'm not going to even attempt it and hire someone out. But I'm like, I've done something similar to this before, and I partly wanted to do, I just wanted to figure it out because it's a skill that's a good skill to have.
Oh. Well, especially as a homeowner, there's times where it's 11 o'clock at night, something goes wrong, you need to fix it by tomorrow.
Yes, but I also like the fact of working with my hands and figuring stuff out. And there's
the problem solving. Yeah, I mean, I did that. We had a bunch of projects at the house, replacing the filaments on the hot water tank. Mm-hmm. We had some of that, and it was like, well, how do I do that? And then a couple YouTubes, and then it was like, I think I can figure that out, and did it. And I'm not, and that goes back to sure, we were talking about outsourcing some of the stuff of the mental drain, but these tasks where you get some final product, final outcome.
But it's also curiosity too. Like when you said, can I do this, or how is this done?
Right. Right. There's this reward piece, like mowing the lawn just to keep the lawn mowed. It's rewarding to some people.
Yeah,
but
not me.
Not me. No,
yeah. It's
like, oh, how do you edge a walkway? I don't really care.
Yeah,
but if it's
we'll even have to set up a Shopify site or something. I'm like, I don't plan to do this much more in my career, so I'm just a one-off thing. I want someone that knows what they're doing to do it.
Right.
Because I don't really care. I don't understand it. I don't really want to understand it. It's I just want it to work.
Well, and it's also, I think it also comes down to it's not like your financial future is tied to it either.
Correct.
Because you would probably take a lot more care about it if it was, oh, hey, your next venture, the next thing you're doing to put food on the table is X.
Yeah.
You're going to take a lot more time to try to figure it out and learn it than...
Yes. I mean, and again, in this scenario, I'm looking at that. That's a one-off thing for me.
Right.
In that scenario. But if it was, hey, you have to get really good at helping people buying and selling homes, and I'm like, well, that's kind of the thing I have to do to make money, then, yeah, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to, hands-on. I can't outsource how to, discuss with sellers the strategy of selling their home. To be honest, I have a hard time even telling that to agents because I'm like, I can tell you themes and generalities and things I look for, but there's so many nuances that what I try to do is you're going to hear a bunch of stuff, but these might be, example, the 5 most common themes of what you hear.
Right.
And you have to then decipher what's the answer you're getting or the conversation you're having, which bucket does it fall into, and then you got to tailor that bucket to the specific scenario. But because you have the guiding principles, you can make those adjustments. So the nuancey stuff is very, very difficult. But if you go back to the generalities and the main pillars and the basics,
the foundation, the fundamentals of real estate,
and or human interaction or what you're trying to accomplish, and that's and I think that's what I like, and I'm talking about essentials and being efficient and being effective and all this stuff. One of the things I always come back to is the idea of simplicity. Less is more. Go less. And there was a quote I heard the other day is, perfection's not when you can't add any more, it's when you can't take out any less. Or it's not when you can't add any more, it's when you can't take more out, or something along those lines. I butchered that. But the idea of perfection is when you basically have simplified everything down to the point it cannot, it's like a math equation.
Yeah.
You don't have those big complex problems and you just kind of keep, this is old school algebra. I say old school. It's algebra that I learned old school, I should say, years ago. but it's algebra, but you can break down all those complex equations, and the next thing you know, it ends up breaking down to x equals, or 2 equals x plus 5 or something.
Right.
Like something simple, and you're like, oh, easy, then x is whatever. Like, but you can break those things down so it's a very small equation, and that's what I try to do. When you start to understand something at a very high level, it then becomes more simple because you can actually decipher all the smoke and mirrors and the high-end stuff and really bring it down to the basics. And I find that like that's what I try to do in a lot of stuff. Is like, what's the easiest, most efficient, least complex way that we can accomplish this problem? And I feel like every time I look at a problem or another year goes, I learn more, make connections, and I'm like, actually, why do we do that? It doesn't make sense. We had one the other day. We were talking about like buyers and sellers, and I was like, I forgot what the exact example was, but I'm like, the only time this would ever happen is this scenario. No matter what, all this, we're like, this. I'm like, wait, let's just simplify that down. If this was ever to happen, it would only be part of this. And again, right. I know it's broad. I'm thinking of like, it only could be with like a seller
Well, it generally it always comes down to it depends, right? Is like that's so every job and every bit of industries that I've been in, it always comes down to, well, it depends. And then if you take that it depends down to, you break it down into like, no, this is the 5 things that are happening. Mm-hmm. Like, let's leave all the rest of it out. These 5 things led to this outcome.
Yeah.
What can I do with these 5 things to get that outcome or a better outcome? And I think that being able to explain, if we do these 5 things this certain way, we will get to our goal.
Yeah, well, it's like focusing on the leaves when you should be focusing on like the main branches.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think they call it like root. Like if you take a tree, I heard this once, but the decision tree. If you're making decisions and all you're doing every day is cutting back the leaves, making like those little minor decisions. But what happens if you have like, let's just say you have like a, root rot or something like that, and it's like eating the tree from the inside. If you go and just fix the problem at the root, at the tree, all the problems up there are already taken care of. Right. But most people want to sit there and cut back the branches of the tree or the leaves off the tree or whatever without actually going to the trunk of the tree and figuring out the problem. Right. So from a decision standpoint too, or simplicity standpoint, like how quick or how much can you take all those, like when you start off in any business, you're kind of living in the branches and the trees because you don't really know, but then eventually you're like, oh, I'm actually seeing what actually makes sense. So now I keep going more simple, and really at the end of the day, you're really just at the root of the tree.
Right.
Or the trunk of the tree. And that is the basics versus like getting lost too much. So what do they call it? Like lost in the clouds or like can't see the forest through the trees kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, you're in a forest, not in the trees.
Just, okay. And then it gives you that clarity where you can go do the 5 things that you need to do to get out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or realize like actually you shouldn't be in the forest, you should be on the beach. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, sweet. Yeah.
But I was like, it was that tree or that tree? Like, no, you got to go actually over there. Like, I know it's like a simplistic like generality, but that's the idea of like, I'm fascinated with trying to figure this out, and then also trying to like, what's some opportunities that you can take advantage of by thinking like this, or by simplifying, or by changing direction a little bit. Or challenging the status quo of like, there's something we did yesterday. It was like, yeah, that's what we do. And then I was like, it was with Jen, I was having a conversation, and my answer was, well, that needs to happen. And I paused. I'm like, does that actually need to happen? Has it ever come up as an issue that hasn't happened? Like this ran through my head yesterday. I was like, wait. I'm like, honestly, I don't think we need to do it that way. And by not doing that way, every time we do that task, we're probably saving a solid 10 minutes on that one task.
Right.
So
or longer.
Or longer. And I was like, and again, I was like, in my head, I was like, no, we're not going to do it that way anymore. Yeah. And I said, the only reason it's done that way is because it's quote, always been done that way, that's the worst reason to always do it that way.
When you get that answer, oh well, we just always do it that way, it drives me nuts because it's like, what if there's a different, like, if you're gonna yell at me, like, professionally because I did it a different way than it's always been done, but it took me a quarter of the time to get to the same answer, but I'm getting in trouble because
You're not working as long.
you're not filling your punch card. And it's like, but I just saved, like, I saved us 3/4 of the time that I could be doing something else. Or
perfect example, like this morning, if you asked me today, like, what did you get done today? Like, what did you actually get done today? I would probably have a very, very short list of things I got to today. And I would have a list of things I didn't get to today. But if you were to actually break it down, I would be like, I worked 2 hours directly on the most essential thing that we need to do right now in our business versus spending 5 or 6 hours getting distracted by email, call this client, do this, answer this request, do this, do that, where I'm just like I'm getting pulled every direction because of someone else's prerogative. Like, that's what they want, therefore I'm just like reacting.
right.
Instead, I've had a very proactive day where I've done what I wanted to do, and I've
or needed to do.
Or needed. Actually, I should say needed.
It's needed because that's
yeah, trust me, I didn't want to do what I had to do today. It was needed. Yes.
Right.
Good.
But it comes because I'm sure there are days where if you look back at the end of the day and you go, I didn't get the thing that I needed to get done today done.
Correct.
And it's 7 p.m. You're not going to sleep well. You're not going to. It's going to throw off your whole routine for, like, feeling good the next day when you get up because you're going to be stressed about the thing you didn't get done. Now you have 2 things that need to get done. It's compounding, and then that's how you burn out.
Well, and then on the opposite end of burnout, I could say, like, today it's 3:35 right now. I'll tell you exactly what I did today so people have context. I showed up later than I wanted to because of some kid stuff, which is fine. Life happens. You adjust.
But and you also have the blessing to be able to have that happen.
Yes, very flexible.
So
I could do like
you're not getting written up for being late today.
No. So this is what happened. I bring my kids to school most mornings. We show up. My son's not acting the way he normally is, and kind of like, what's wrong, buddy? What's wrong? He didn't really say much. And long and short, we get to the school. He's not feeling well. So I was like, brought my daughter in and said, you sure you don't want to go in? Blah. He's like, I don't feel good. And you can tell he's not faking it. He doesn't feel good. So I'm like, all right, fine. Back in the car. Now, where I bring them is about 2 minutes from here. I get in the car, drive 15 minutes back home, drop them off, drive 15 minutes back here. So I end up showing up about a half hour later. It's not the end of the world. But I'm saying, so that's my morning. But again, I do have the flexibility to do that. Then I worked on very minor, actually, I lied. I worked on, I kind of told you before about our continuing ed. I worked on continuing ed very quickly this morning for strategic reasons. I did that. And then I ended up spending 2 hours on some really, like, things I have to do that are going to buy me back time in the future. I wasn't answering email. I wasn't just following up here and there with random stuff. I said it was very like, nothing else. My phone's off. I'm diving into this. I rattled off a bunch of stuff to the point at the end of 2 hours, I'm like, I'm tired. Like, very saturated amount of thinking,
but like mentally exhausted doing work.
Yes. Yeah. It was 2 hours. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm good. I had a lunch with a friend, business associate kind of thing, doing a podcast with you, meeting with a few people right after this, and then I should be home by 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight. But if you ask, like, how much work did I actually physically do today, I have done. No, I consider it like a mixture of this work and the lunch work and the thing after this work. But it's like fun. I'm with cool people. People I like. People I enjoy the company of.
It doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't feel like work. My actual work today is going to probably entail about 2 hours, maybe 2.5. And then I look at that, but I'm like, I bet you I accomplished more today than most people will that worked 8 or 9 hours today.
Right.
But it's because of what I'm working on, and I've stripped out all the other things that are kind of like distractions or not as, high end.
The busy sort of fluff work to fill out your 8.
To make me
to
feel like
timers.
I was like successful. Right. I'm like, I worked 2 hours today, but moved the needle further in my career than I would have if I did something for 8 hours today.
Right.
So I'm getting more into that level where I can, really hammer stuff out and be like, you know what? I could leave today. I could leave right after this and be like, you know what? I had a great day.
Good day, right.
And there's a lot of stuff I didn't get to, a lot of stuff that's unfinished. But you know what? I took care of the big, more essential part of the day versus got all the little to-do tasks out of the way. But really at the end of the day, if I do them tomorrow or if I never get them done, I'm probably okay. This is allowing me to level up going forward, stuff
right.
that I can do in the future. So that's where I'm at, is that each day I have a very simplistic schedule, and I'm fine with letting something slide because I know I'm working on bigger priority things that are the things I should be working on. Now my problem is, if I'm working on the correct thing, how can I maybe work on them a little bit better, or delegate or offload or third party outsource something. So even though it's the high priority, maybe it's not something I should be doing. I'm focusing on the right task, but maybe I can offload it, get that portion done, and just keep moving on to the next big task. That's where I'm really trying to get better at, is like, okay, who do I seek out? How do I find someone that could write this copy, or someone that could develop this database, or can I leverage like an online transcription tool that does it in the snap of a finger and I don't have to do it.
Right.
So that's where I'm like trying to wrap my head about, okay, I'm working on the right thing, but how can I work on the right thing very efficient?
Right.
And then
because working on the right thing not well doesn't benefit you as much as it could.
But it's better than working on something you shouldn't be doing well.
Right.
So like I could be really good at responding to email.
Which you are.
Which I am, but it's not.
Right.
It's not moving the needle as much as me being like moderately good at something that's going to move the needle. It's better to work on that.
Right.
And if someone's like, you didn't respond to my email in the last 24 hours, like, I'm okay with that. Like, versus not getting.
Right. If the one ding on you is that you didn't answer the email timely enough.
Yeah.
Like.
Which happens, but
yeah.
But it also allows me to, what's the word? Relieve myself of shitty clients very quickly. Because if you have someone that's requesting that, and I'm like, get out of here.
But that also, and I mean, that also comes down to like, that comes back to the whole pricing thing too. Mm-hmm. Is like, doing freelance web development or whatever, and it's like, oh well, I'm going to go with the cheapest person. Fine.
Yeah.
like if you're going to work with a, from what I've found is the cheaper the lower amount that people are going to pay you for their expectations of like a website or a product, because they want it done cheap and quick. Mm-hmm. Those are going to be the worst clients.
Correct. Yes.
So, you have no problem paying the $5,000 like project fee. Mm-hmm. If you work with a nice enough client, that's just going to get paid.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it for like $500 or $100, the person's going to be like, I don't like the colors. I don't like the, could you tweak this, tweak that, and then you're over budget, overspent, and then burnt out. Mm-hmm. It's like, And
you have the headache of a shitty client.
Well, but that's also like the overhead too, is like, it's also part of client work too.
What's the quote? It's like, if you think hiring a professional is expensive, try hiring an amateur.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of that idea. It's like, yeah, if you you wouldn't hire me to do a Shopify site, but they'd hire you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't hire me because I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm like, I guarantee you, I'm going to charge less than Emmett because I'm trying to get a market share. If we're both in that category, but I'm like, I'm not going to be as good as what you are. So I'd expect you to charge more because of your expertise.
Well, it's like the whole the plumbing thing.
Yeah.
It-
Say the line. I know. You say the same thing as me.
Well, it's the whole thing of like we were talking about it earlier. You're not going to hire the plumber that just got his certificate to come fix your toilet, but the plumber that's been doing it for 25 years is going to come in, touch 2 things, and it's fixed, and charge you $300. But
Did you ever hear the line about that? Someone paid a plumber. This was a book I read. Someone pays the plumber. Plumber comes in, is there for 5 minutes. They get an invoice for $200, and they're like, $200? You're here for 5 minutes? He goes, yeah. He goes, $10 was for the 10 minutes. He goes, 190 was was because I knew where to swing the hammer.
right, yeah,
Because you're paying for the knowledge.
right,
But then I also look at, back to what I talked about probably an hour ago, is that if I've spent, I don't even know what year this is, 13 or 14 years of real estate, if I spent this amount of time learning and doing and everything as much as I've done.
Well, and also this goes back to the networking piece. You have a network locally of people that can
Absolutely.
that you have a book of connections that
Correct.
you can go, this person does great work. If you need work done, this is who you should call.
Also, I'm lucky to be in a position that there's a lot of good people on my phone that I could call right now that will speak to me directly and answer a question for me in a split second versus most. And again, I'm not saying some other agents have connections like this, but the fact that like in our industry that stuff is not valued as much as in other industries where I could see that being valued is because to take all the information and strategy and thoughts and experience and just the know-how of stuff and then say I'm really boxed into a certain fee or price or whatever that I can get as someone who just started that is not knowledgeable, that's the thing that I can't stand.
Right.
Where if you're like,
But that book of contacts that you have is probably worth that fee, that extra fee,
100 times over.
100 times over.
Absolutely.
And that's also how I view all of my my networking. I've helped people get jobs.
Yeah.
I've made connections where it turns out that it's like, yeah, they're making more money that they've ever dreamed about as a salary because a connection I made on Twitter or social media. That's incredible.
What's funny is I thought so. There's multiple people that I know locally that, and I'm not naive in saying it's because of me they got this position, but I would say there's a lot of people that I know that have made connections and are where they're at because of introductions I've made. And obviously there's work to be done after that fact. But everything happens for a reason. You meet people for a reason. Things happen for a reason. People cross paths in life for a reason. And it's like, can you capitalize on that? So if I made an introduction for somebody and they capitalized on it, awesome. Like that's good on them.
Right.
And I look at the same thing. Like I've put myself strategically in good positions and I've found opportunities. And there's a few off the top of my head that I'm like, life-changing opportunities or relationships with me.
Absolutely.
But they came from someone else. Or sometimes it's just my own what's the word? Like initiative, but I was in the right place, the right time, saw the opportunity and took it. And that is something that you have to just understand, and it's tough. I can't explain it. It's like gut feelings, nuances and stuff. And there's multiple people in my life that have like perfect example. Like I guess I won't dive into examples, but there's certain people in my life that have come in on random encounters. It'd be like me walking out of the office today, bumping into somebody, and someone says, "Hey, by the way, I was thinking about you the other day." Boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. But that happens, and it's happened to me in my life. But a lot of it is because I put myself in the right spot, or I knew the person that made the connection to this person.
Yeah.
Perfect example now. I have a really good friend of mine who I met, still one of my, a really good friend to this day. Met this person through the Chamber of Commerce. So I get involved with the Chamber of Commerce. I meet this girl, has become one of my best friends. She has introduced me to, it's funny, it's like, like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon?
Yeah.
I feel it's like the 6 degrees
Yeah.
of this girl. Because a lot of things that have come into my life and opportunities and stuff, this goes both ways. It's like a two-way street with this person. But if you go back, I'm like, oh, this is because of that person. Introduce me to this person, introduce me to this person, introduce me to this person, introduce me to this person. And now I'm like layers deep in this connection.
Right.
But it all came back to, and you could really say it all came back to me getting involved with the Chamber.
Right.
But we're so far down. We're talking probably 5-6 years down this path. But it's opened this many opportunities and connections and doors and things that people have met.
That's my whole story with social media and Twitter and getting into tech is like.
Sorry. Also, this person I'm talking about had actually DM'd me randomly prior to me actually knowing who they were or meeting them via the Chamber because of social media.
I mean,
so I'm saying it's just like,
but
yes.
So like, this whole experience also wouldn't happen if you didn't put yourself out there. Right?
You and I wouldn't have met. I don't think.
No,
perfect example. You and I don't think would have met had we not both been on the same spaces.
Yeah, and in any way, like how I got my current role. I want to hear this because this is wild. So basically, actually, last time I was on the pod,
yes.
It was.
Do you know when that was roughly?
It was November 2021.
Wow, good on you for knowing that.
And you asked me what my title was, and I jokingly said software engineer because I wasn't fully a software engineer yet. I did it for fun. I did it on the side. And you said, what do you want to be? I said software engineer. Podcast goes live. The next day I get a job offer to become a software engineer.
So trippy because they listen to the podcast.
Hopefully, but I was
maybe just put it in the universe.
It was we put it out there, and then anyway.
That's so wild.
So when I made a post on social about joining this company, I have my current CEO reach out to me and go, congratulations. Mm-hmm. Never met him before. Never interacted with him a little bit on Twitter.
The current one you're at now.
Current one I'm at now.
Gotcha.
So then back in May of 2022, I was laid off due to tech having a weird funding issues and whatnot, and no hard feelings whatsoever. Like
it happens, yeah.
And then due to my connections on the internet, I went from a layoff to a job offer in 2 weeks to join another startup. I do 6 months there. They closed the position due to financial stuff. And then, but all while this is going on, I am messaging and talking to my current CEO and checking in with him, seeing how his business is doing, congratulating him on all the new features that are coming out. And then when I got laid off in October, there was a time where it was like I posted, hey, got laid off looking for work. This was like just when Elon took over Twitter. So Twitter was fully staffed. Mm-hmm. Elon takes over, lets go like 85% of the company. Mm-hmm. Then Meta lays off 10,000. Amazon lays off 15. Microsoft's laying off 10,000 people. I'm just like, there's no way. Like, this job market's crazy. I'm gonna have to go back to the working like an odd jobs and stuff around town. And then CEO at KnoCommerce was like, hey, let's come interview. We'll see what we can do. And that's all from just putting myself out there, networking, not knowing where these conversations, and just cheering people on that are building stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, building stuff's not easy. Like, people, you just clickety-click on your computer and you get an application. It's like, no, to make it a viable digital product, it takes a lot of work. and to cheer those people on and to share other people's winnings. If you share other people's wins, you'll do better. You know, you're not necessarily like the point guard building the thing, right? You're not the star, but like the person making the assists and being on part of the team, they get a ring too.
Yeah.
Like, it's sharing connections and networking, I think it's a skill that is undervalued.
No, I agree. And it's like what you said before. It's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, that's the case. Like, I don't think. I mean, you can know stuff. Trust me. Like, you can know stuff and get your foot in the door that way. All things being equal, though, who you know is going to open doors for you. But it comes with the connection. It comes with getting yourself out there. It comes with meeting people. And most people don't have these. Like, you could say, like, oh, he's only introduced because of his family or whatever.
That's still a connection.
Still a connection. And honestly, if I was a kid and I had a connection like that, you'd be dumb not to lean into it.
Right.
But if I'm looking at it, I'm like, a lot of the connections that I've made, where people could say, "Well, you just got it because you knew so and so." I'm like, yeah, I didn't always know so and so, right? You know, and I think when you really look at it, so there's been a lot of schlepping for stuff. Like, I mean, it's not like I've not done stuff. Like, I've done, and this is what I go back to. And I'm the same. Like, I'm in the real estate space, but if I see realtors that are doing well, like, I know what you have to do to hit certain numbers, and I know either you need systems or you got like.
So you'll see an agent hit some like crazy milestone, and you're like, that's awesome.
I've texted people at the end of the year. Yeah. I've looked at the final stats. I'm like, good job.
Yeah.
Like, I know what that takes to do. Like, and I think that most agents, I think, well, at least in my industry, like, if you really, good agents don't have to say they're good. If you go back to that, if you get agents that are,
it's the same thing with any client services business.
Yeah, you know who's good,
right?
And you could say, like, well, Galen, you post on social media, like, yeah, that's a portion of like how you put the word out there. But I don't roll into like appointments and be like, did you know I was number 1 last year? Like, I've never said that to a client.
Or that's not your advertising.
That's not my thing. I'm like, I'm telling you all the things I'm going to do to get yours sold. You don't care what I've done in the past.
Right.
Like, I'm going to talk to you. I mean, yes, maybe that proves something. But really, at the end of the year, I'm coming in and saying, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to, and anything I've done up to this point, you're just benefiting from. But you don't care any accolades I got. I mean, maybe, but most people are like, what can you do for me? Right. WIFM, what's in it for me? And I go through that all the time. I'm like, I got to prove myself to that person, because even if they think I'm really, really good, which obviously makes the conversion easy or the sale easy on the client, I still am not going to be like, well, they already think I'm good, so I'm just going to not work as hard. I'm like, that's not in me. Like, I'm going to be like, no, I'm going to work just as hard, but I'm going to do it in the context of what I already know. Right. And use my knowledge and skill, not rest on my laurels, to make it happen. I think good people do that. Like, I don't have to. If people ask me, like, who are the good agents in our area, I'll give you a list. I'll give you a very strong list of people that I've worked with, directly, that I would consider the upper echelon of agents that I would list or buy a house with. Absolutely.
And that's huge. That's
and I would say, would agents say that about me? I would hope so. Some might not. You might have some agents that would never give certain agents the time of day because of envious, jealousy, or whatever.
They're already number 1. Why do they need?
Or
like they're already a top agent.
Or there's
why
like
do they
a
need
jealousy thing of like, I wouldn't have that. I'm like, why? Because they're good? Is that the only reason you don't like them? Is because they're successful? And I don't. That's not me. So I'm like, for years, I remember my goal was to be the top agent. And it was just purely just as a metric. Like, I wasn't the best agent in the country. I wasn't the best agent in the state. It was best agent in our local board. It's the only numbers I could really see. Hey, might as well go for first. It's a leaderboard. I play sports. Like, Ricky Bobby. If you're not first, you're last. So I was like, let me just try it. And but at no point during that journey to be number 1 did I ever look at the people that were number 1 and say, I'm going to tear them down. In my head, I was like, I'm God, they did 50 something deals this year. Like, how are they doing that? Right. Not like, screw them, they're doing 50 something deals. I hate them. It was more like, let me learn from them, or let me figure out how to do that, because it's possible.
It's clearly possible. They hit it.
They hit it.
They did the thing.
And I've met them before. They're a normal person.
Right.
They're nothing. They're not like some robot.
And I think that's the other interesting thing about me being so technically like web, like in the internet, remembering that people are people and that they're humans is so important.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think with you being in a sort of smaller market is like, you don't burn bridges here.
No, you can't.
Because
your reputation is your business.
Right.
That's in a small community that is amplified.
Amplified because it's one bad. Same thing with like marketing product or anything like that. You give somebody a bad experience, they're telling all their friends. Mm-hmm. They're telling their family. They're telling. Yeah. They're posting on social media. I had a terrible experience. Well, bummer. Like,
yeah.
And a lot of people just write it off. Oh, well, it was one experience. It's like, but they told, the whole thing is if one person has a bad experience, they're going to tell 10 people.
Well, the other thing too is like, someone could say that on Facebook and people are like, the person seems kind of crazy. And people can decide, like reasonable people can look at it and say like, what's the context here? And is that someone of trustworthiness? But if you find that someone that's got probably a collectiveness of people saying that person's pretty sane and like a normal person, or I would trust that person, and they post something, then that's a major red flag. Because you get it. You're not going to have zero complaints. It's impossible.
Right.
You're going to have complaints, but then I've had more than enough complaints. If you want to see, go to Zillow. Go to my Zillow profile. I got more complaints, I think, on there than good stuff. But it's like 1 star bashing me, and it's like, but then I go to I'm like, I know the person, and the person was just one of those like you can't please everybody. And I'm like, if I've had
or it's the house or property or whatever that's like there's stuff out of your hands that you can't.
There's a few on Zillow that I'm like, these people were borderline nut jobs, and I knew that. Like I didn't know it when but as the went across, I'm like, these people are crazy, and there's no way to make them happy. If you say black, they're saying white. It does not matter. And those are the ones that go on and bash you. And I'm like, yeah. And of course, half of them are like misspelled, like just like keyboard. What's it called? Keyboard warrior. Yeah, like just sitting there, just tapping away. And I'm like okay. And most of them are like very, what's the word?
Vulgar.
Not vulgar. I actually was kind of. One of them went on, and I ended up like responding to it, and I knew the exact reason why this person said what they did, and they basically put in the response like very passive aggressively all the stuff that was the reason of like why they were upset. But I broke it back down to like, so if anybody reading it would have been like, oh, this person's just kind of a wackadoo. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't spend time really on those because like
they'll make you go crazy.
For every bad client, you have 100 great clients. So it's like, but it's just funny when you see that. It's like people can like look through that and be like, yeah, that person doesn't seem very, very credible.
Right. But like you're also going to make your decisions on where you go to a restaurant based on those reviews, and it's like, well, if that's the only one. And everything else is like...
Absolutely. Bury you.
It's like, okay, sweet. Yeah, I trust, I trust that I'm going to go to this place for lunch. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the network stuff is really important. And
what's your take on... 2 things I want to ask you before we wrap up. What's your take on Twitter now that... Since Elon bought it, because you're deep in it. I've been way out before this ever even happened.
Before, right? So
years before. My second one is going to be AI. So hit this first one. Twitter.
So the Twitter thing is
because you did not get hired as CEO of Twitter.
I did not get hired.
Just want to make that clear for everybody.
But I did have friends lose their job.
So you did know people at Twitter.
I knew people at Twitter, lost their jobs. Some are still struggling to find work, which is
not good.
Not good, and especially with like when that initial layoff happened. I think it eventually gets sold to somebody else.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think Elon's going to run this thing to something different?
it's either going to go for sale for something else to try to scrap for parts, or it's going into the ground.
Have you seen what his? Well, actually, first, why would you say that?
Just because how he handles some of the decisions that need to be more informed. Like, they don't have an HR department right now. How do you not have an HR department when you're supposedly the village, the town square?
Do you know how many employees are there as of right now?
No, but it's a lot less than.
So 2,300 people.
It's less than that.
Yeah, because the one I just clicked was 3,900, down to 2,300.
But anyway, I just think running a company that big in him sort of, they've changed the UI a bunch. They've had some they put Dogecoin as the Twitter.
Like the graphic?
Yeah. Well, so instead of the bird in the top left corner, it was the Dogecoin, which Dogecoin went up like.
For how long is that? Is that still there?
No, but when it was there, Dogecoin went up like 500%. Like,
which doesn't Elon have a big stake in?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
And it just seems like it's way too much, and I can't get behind somebody that's I don't think he's a good businessman.
So you don't like Elon?
No.
So I'm the opposite. I love Elon.
Why?
So this is from my understanding, and again, take this for what it is. From at the end of the day, if I had to strip it down, he is an engineer, thinker first and foremost. So if you look at that, like take so what was his first business? Was it X.com?
X.com and then PayPal.
Okay,
that got bought by PayPal, I believe.
Yeah, so X.com, PayPal, then it went into like, I think it was Tesla and SpaceX in and around the same time.
He didn't start SpaceX, or he didn't start Tesla.
He didn't, no, but he started SpaceX. Tesla, he came in, I'm trying to remember, I read his book and I've read and heard a bunch of stuff, but long and short of it, those two were in, I think SpaceX started like early 2000s.
They were the similar time frame, I think.
And Tesla was a little bit later. I think SpaceX was first. Tesla was a little bit later. And he didn't start Tesla, came in at some level and ended up acquiring it or whatever. He was also part of OpenAI and then left that a couple years ago. The one thing that fascinates me about Elon is his ability to think, his ability to innovate, his ability to I think Elon Musk is going to go down in history as like a Leonardo da Vinci, a Ben Franklin, a Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, any of these people.
Because he bought his way into things?
How so?
He bought his way into Tesla. He didn't build Tesla.
No, he didn't. I'm not saying he built Tesla. But take Elon, he started out and built X.com or whatever it was back then. I think it was X.com. Built it, like slept on, like, I think he's like lived out of a one apartment dorm, like hacked the internet from down below, like bootleg to the nth degree. Got this up and running, turned into PayPal. I think he got 180 million out of it, turned almost all of it into what we know as Tesla. Whatever he bought into it, whatever the case might be. Same thing with SpaceX. He puts his money into these companies, then drives those companies up to the level they're at now, working an ungodly amount of hours, like leading from the front. So if you go from a leader business person, this is what I've learned from running our business, which is a massively small business. It is hard. Mm-hmm. there's a lot of shit here that I don't know how to do, that I'm literally doing it because I've been kind of thrust into it. I didn't set out to lead people or have employees or make decisions or market or do any of this stuff. I literally got in 13 years ago with a real estate license in college because I didn't want to serve ice cream anymore. That was the extent of it. So from there, I've had to learn on the fly because of, like, I grew, I worked hard, I acquired a level of success, which then in my brain was like, let's go to the next level, because I was like, I can't sit still. I gotta be doing something. I gotta be challenging myself. So every level that we go up, I then have to put more stress on myself than I probably should, but it's because I'm trying to solve the next problem. I'm playing Mario. I'm like trying to get to the next level. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get to the flagpole, like of every level.
Yeah.
I am a minuscule example compared to someone like Elon Musk. So when I look at Elon, there's so much involved in business. There's so much involved in decisions. And really, if you want to pull back the curtain on everything, nobody knows what the hell they're doing.
No, absolutely
I don't
not.
know what I'm doing.
Right.
I make shit up every single day based on all the information that I have, my current level of brain power, my current level of problem solving, my current level of my whatever my decision-making tasks are, and my level of input into myself, whether it's something I read, people I talk to, whatever, experiences. Right. I make decisions with the best intent that I can, but really don't know if they're going to work out. It's like parenting. I don't know if it's going to work out. I'm just going to try it. Then you take someone like Elon, who's doing it in new frontiers. Nobody's privately sent rockets to space. Nobody's mass-produced electric cars at the level he has. Not only that, is he open sources everything. He lets people like, this is what I'm doing, improve on it. I don't give a shit. Like, make this better. The one thing I find fascinating about Elon, and people want to shit on him, which is their prerogative. They can do whatever they want. This is a guy that is so far brilliant in certain categories that he is going to fail massively in many parts of his life because he's such an extreme. Take anybody that's a high level. Take Tiger Woods. I love golf. Tiger Woods is not a normal person. You talk to him, he's awkward. He's got a bunch of, like, you could have a bunch of problems in certain areas of your life, but that guy can win a golf tournament.
Right.
Why do people love him? Because he can win a golf tournament. But what does he have? He's not the most personable person. He had a really bad stint of marital affair stuff. He's had injuries because he's tried to perfect. Like, he is off the charts. Steve Jobs, people could say Steve Jobs is an absolute dick. Probably was in certain regards. You can't deny the fact that he was absolutely brilliant and innovative in certain things because he's so far one way off the spectrum that you cannot live a balanced life if you are that far extreme.
Right.
I don't want to be. Hence the reason why I'm trying to find efficient ways that I can spend more time with my kids and have free time to spend with the people I love. Right. I look, Elon's been divorced 3 times and has 6 kids that he doesn't see that often. That's his choice. I would never want to do that. But I'm saying, and I don't blame him for it. I'm just saying that's his life. I could care less. Do it. You do you. I'm just saying from an innovation standpoint, he's able to understand a bunch of stuff that I'm like, he is just, it's unreal how his brain processes stuff. That doesn't translate into being a good leader. That doesn't translate into being a good business person. But I think all the stuff that he's doing, same thing, I go to different parts of my career that are hard for me. Now pretend I own Twitter with how many, or whatever, SpaceX and Tesla, and then I acquire Twitter for billions of dollars because I have the money to do so. And I now take over something that's been going for 15 plus years that's on a massive scale. I come into this whole massive complex ecosystem. It's not like I'm buying G&G tire across the road. Right. And I'm like, what do we got? 5, like, I don't know, like say 15 people here. What's your processes? We'll kind of figure this out. Oh, we got 2,000 people, and we're dealing with a lot of legal things, and we're one of the biggest tech companies in the world.
Or not dealing with a bunch of legal things.
Or whatever. But he's coming into something, and people expect, like, just because you took it over, the learning curve now is you got to have this thing up and running. How many people go into any position in their careers, in their jobs, and understand something day one? They don't.
No.
like I guarantee you going into a different company had a few month learning curve, and you're still learning. And you're like, okay, I'm getting better every day, but I'm learning. The problem is people jump on this guy. He buys Twitter, and next thing you know, it's all over the news. Well, he laid off these people, and he did this, and he did this, and he did this, and it's like, Elon sucks. And I'm like, first off, one thing, and again, I'm just saying what I've heard. Elon said they were grossly overstaffed. Now, could be right, could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Right. But in my thought is that most companies, especially the last couple of years, have gotten bloated.
Right.
And it probably was they were staffed fairly correctly for the time. And I mean, like you said, Meta dropped off 10,000 or whatever it was. People.
Multiple times.
Yeah. But nobody bats an eye really at that. That's a headline, but not really a headline where Elon drops, say, 1,500 people, and now people are like, this guy's terrible.
Well, it's because it was in a, like...
How he did it?
How he did it.
But I also think, too, if you're coming in, and this is where I think Elon is not the most, lovey-dovey, hand-holding kind of person. Elon's like, rip the Band-Aid off. Honestly, what we're going to need to do is lay off a bunch of people.
Right.
Instead of making this, softer on those people.
But he also got people to buy into this Twitter 2.0 thing. They were sleeping at their desks.
Yeah.
Because and then, guess what? They got laid off in 4 months and didn't get severance.
Yeah, so all the behind the scenes stuff, I don't know that stuff well.
So there's this whole thing where the people that got laid off initially got a severance package.
Okay. Which was how many people you think?
1,000? I think it was more than 1,000.
Okay.
I think it was 2,000 people.
Okay.
They all got severance packages. Then he posted, "Hey, I need 100% buy-in to Twitter 2.0 by Thursday afternoon at 4 Central or whatever."
Who's on the board? Who's on the bus?
Who's getting on the bus to come do this Twitter 2.0 thing?
Yeah.
Be in the office. And this is after everyone's gone remote, so people aren't even in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. They're not even at, their nearest, basically
physical locations.
Yep. Where it's the nearest Twitter, New York City, that's 6 hours for me. Mm-hmm. Let's just say, I need to be there tomorrow. There's a lot of logistical things that's well, nope, I'm just going to lose my job.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it.
Then there's they brought on this, the person for, it was health and safety of Twitter person who posted that she was sleeping at her desk all week, sleeping on the floor, had a blow-up mattress next to her desk. Gets laid off in the next round of layoffs after she proved herself that she was going to bet all on Twitter 2.0. No severance package. Mm-hmm. So you swear to do this thing, to come do this crazy thing and work all these hard hours, and you're not going to get rewarded for it.
So I think a couple things on that is, I would say yes, that is not.
And there's even the legal things of him not going through proper routes for the layoffs for people in the EU and Europe.
Yeah, so I think it goes to two things. One, he could just say, screw it, I really don't care.
I have enough money, it doesn't matter.
Which he could. So he could say, screw it, I don't care, I have a million things going on. Honestly, I'm going to break it, someone else is going to fix it, and he's going to move on. Again, I'm not saying Elon is the most dead center guy. This guy is so extreme that a lot of people at that high level... I'm not at that level. I'm just saying I could see people at that level. You see it with movie stars. You see it with actors. You see it with business people.
They're just going to take the hit and move on.
But if we strip this down to the bare, our level, we just talked about, and again, on a small example, I have someone run out and get me food. Very small example. If something were to happen or they come back with the wrong meal or something, or maybe I just it's it's probably a bad example, but the idea of certain things in our business I don't want to do because of time or because I don't think the payoff's big enough. I will let crash and burn because I have to focus on other stuff. And that's on a small level. I make those decisions every day where if I don't think it's worth my time to make a call, respond to something, deal with this question, whatever, I will offsource it to somebody else or just let it fizzle out because I don't have enough time to deal with it because I've had to triage my day into what's most important. Elon could be looking at that, and again, I'm speculating, and just say, I really don't care. Like, it's bad that I don't care, but really I got to put it on a whole spectrum of problems. I have other people that can deal with that, and I got to deal on X, Y, and Z because I'm a human and I have 24 hours in a day. I'm not saying it's the best choice or people don't look at it as the best choice. I'm saying I could see where someone at that level who is, I mean, we're talking in a massive outlier in the career in business, that you also have somebody that's coming into a company that I would say has a way different, I won't say strategies, but like viewpoints on how stuff is run. I do think there's an ideology difference between the old Twitter owners and probably most people that work there and Elon.
Yeah.
I don't think there's I don't think they see eye to eye on a lot of things. And I think at a certain point you have a mixture of Elon coming in and establishing the way he wants it, which he owns the business, good on him. That's his just choice to do. I also feel like for people that are employees of a company, you never want to not take care of people. But if you look at it, depending on what the situation is, some people will say, listen, I'll let the business run to the ground and take care of the employees, which they could. Some people could say, you know what, I'm going to have to let some employees go to keep this business going. So hopefully in a year from now, I can rehire them or that position and 5 more positions, but I got to take a step back to go a step forward. I don't know the whole vision of what he wants to do. But I look at employees don't have. This is why I've always said I want to work for myself. I have full control over what I do.
Right.
If I need to make more money, if I need to figure out something, if I need to change or adapt or whatever, I ask one person myself. Like, that's really the way it is. I have some legal obligations, obviously, with like ethics and stuff within our industry. As long as I'm not breaking rules, I can make a lot of decisions on basically a snap of a finger.
Right.
And that's not everybody. So I'm saying, yes, unfortunately, these people coming in as employees or being employees, I mean, you ran through 2 of them. You got laid off for 2. Now, nothing bad, but just circumstances.
Yeah.
But you don't have control over whether you stay or whether you go. And Elon, you know, at the end of the day, is a top person, has to call these shots or whoever, but really it comes from him and it stems down. And it could be a decision made from someone 2 tiers down, but he somehow approved the okay for whoever hired that person. You know, so
Right.
really you could always blame the top person. The top person's going to be blamed. It's like blaming the head coach in a sport, or blaming, you know, the director of a crappy movie. I'm like, well, the director was probably great. Maybe they didn't have great people, but then you could argue, well, maybe we didn't hire the best actors. You could always point fingers at people. I think that Elon's ability to think and innovate and whatever is going to put him in the history books. A lot of people right now will be forgotten in history books. Jack Dorsey probably won't make a history book. He's great. He's brilliant. He might. But if you really had to take the people in this generation, you're probably looking at an Elon, a Jeff Bezos. You might be looking at obviously Steve Jobs. You could be looking at a Bill Gates.
Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. You're looking at these tip, like the sphere, the big, Sergey Brin and the Google guys, Larry Page. Like, you'd be looking at those guys, but they're like so far outliers that even someone of like a Twitter or a LinkedIn, who founded LinkedIn, you probably don't. I have no clue. They're not on the same scale as someone that founded Amazon. And it's no bash to the people that founded LinkedIn. They're brilliant. But when you put it on a scale, because you're talking so far at the tippy top of this, that there's going to be pull away. It's like anything else. When you just take statistics, the top, it's not like you follow, like, you know, where like the majority of people are on a bell curve.
Yeah.
Well, when you go to the end of the bell curve, it basically flattens out very quickly. And that's like your outliers. Elon Musk is an outlier in history.
I will say that, yes.
So he, I believe, is going to have massive negatives, and he's going to have way more negatives than he's going to have positives, but his positives are off the chart positive.
the mission of Tesla to decommodify electricity, to bring electricity to everyone, incredible. And what's the internet one? That's Elon, right?
Which one?
The internet satellites.
Starlink.
Starlink. That's also Elon. Bringing internet and electricity, that's incredible. But for me, it's more of the ethical way of treating the people that you are getting there.
So what would be your main negative of him? Was just the way he went about the layoffs, or
way about layoffs, sort of just joking about his whole thing of recently was joking about NPR being government funded and that we should defund it.
So what I will say about...
So there are ways that he puts himself out there that just... it screams that I want nothing to do with it.
Well, I will agree with this, though. If you or I go onto Twitter and make a comment about something, a small subset of people are going to see that. Elon goes and makes a comment on Twitter.
Elon made it part of the algorithm that people would see his tweets.
Why? I mean, I actually see which I know, but like
even if he was blocked or muted, you would still see his tweets.
So this is actually a perfect example. I actually hear that and I'm like, that's actually pretty funny. But what I go at is, I get it that 99% of his tweets that he does, I find it because I'm not in his space. I have no reliance on Elon.
You're not on Twitter.
I'm not really on Twitter, but even if I see it come up on the news or something, or if I see someone repost on Instagram or whatever, it doesn't affect my life. And I might look at that, I'm like, oh, that's pretty genius, or that's pretty funny or brilliant. But I am sympathetic to the fact that if he's putting stuff out there that affects people's livelihood,
which there's 2,000 or more people that lost their jobs that were well paying in areas that houses are ridiculously priced, so that I've seen people that they've had to sell their homes. They almost got deported because they were on visas.
Yep.
And they can't find another job because they just drop of a hat. That's not taking care of people, and I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and I would say, so that's the part where I'm like, I disagree with that, or when you throw out, like, the tweets that he'll throw out that you don't know if he's serious or not serious.
That's terrifying.
Well, and that's the thing. I look at that, and like, as a 99% of people are going to look at that and be like, that's funny. The problem is,
if he does it.
Well, not even if he does or doesn't. If he does or does something, it doesn't really affect me 100% directly. The problem is if that does or doesn't affects, if he does this, I don't have a job tomorrow. And now I have to, like you just said, I got to figure out, or I'm on a work visa and I got to get deported, and now I have
60 days in there, and everybody else is laying off.
Or it's like,
too.
I got my wife and kids in, here, and now we might have to move out of the country, and I got to pull the kids out of school. I get it. I mean, there's so many nuances to everything. So I don't agree with the stuff that he just pops up, because he's in a position, it's kind of like the old Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
There's a level of responsibility that I believe Elon should respect because of his position.
But he doesn't.
And he doesn't. And I disagree with that. But from running a business standpoint, I don't think Elon is a business leader. I think he's great at certain things from a leadership perspective. I think some things he's not good at, which, again, you take in stride. I think a lot of what has come to him has come from the product of his success, which I think happens to other people, and you have to learn it.
Is it success or just having money?
Success. Money is a product of success. So if you go back Elon Musk 40 years ago when he comes to the United States, would you have said Elon Musk is a product of success or a product of money. You would say no. He came over from South Africa, moved to Montreal, went to King's College in Ontario. So we're talking right around us. We're talking within a couple hours of us. Drops out, goes to Stanford, drops out, ends up starting a business with his brother, who's now very high up. And his brother's on the board of Tesla, on the board of SpaceX. He's got a few other ventures he's done and gotten exited. Those two are slumming it just like every other hopeful tech startup, whatever person. They end up getting a buyout. Elon Musk, when he got paid $180 million from PayPal, in theory, probably could have retired. Could have just bought a house, moved somewhere, good, sat around, did nothing the rest of his life. Takes 180, almost goes bankrupt, putting it into another business to go up. So you could say, well, because he had 180, he started this and then he grew. But I'm like, but where did he get that 180 from? He got it from something that he started from scratch. So when you look at, this is the thing, when you go to like the origin story of people, most people...
His dad had the emerald mine in South Africa, though. So
but
there's money there.
But how much money did he have coming over?
What I've seen is that it's like millions of dollars.
I don't think he had millions of dollars at his fingertips.
Not at his fingertips, but he's still a product of...
Could he fall back on it? Maybe. I don't think he had a good relationship with his father. That was one of the things that... I'm just saying at the
From a business side of things, to be able to take the money and bet it successfully this many times is rare.
Absolutely. But I think when you go from an action standpoint and an effort standpoint, people at the top are going to be criticized the most.
Right.
You're going to be the president of the United States, whether you got voted for or not, half the country hates you. From the moment you take office, they didn't vote for you. Like, that's just the reality of the presidency.
Right.
So then you look at, okay, you have however many people love this president, however many people hate this president, you still have the president. They're going to be criticized every single day in every news outlet, no matter what. You take the same with Elon Musk. Elon Musk, arguably 5-6 years ago, wasn't a household name. If you were in the tech space, it was. If you were outside the tech space or outside business, you did not know who Elon Musk was. You didn't know who Mark Zuckerberg was until probably 2008 or 2006 when
he bought Instagram.
Well, I would say before that, but like you really didn't know who he was in the early stages. When's the first time you heard, and you might be different because you're in the space, when's the first time you've heard of Jeff Bezos? Probably was 97.
No.
So, but I'm saying like these people started out at some level. When you look back and say, well, how long has Tesla and SpaceX been around? And you find out SpaceX, I think, has been around for 20 years. Right. Like, really? Like, I just heard Elon in the last like handful of years. Well, yeah, he was working and busting his ass on a bunch of stuff at the very onset. I'm not saying every decision he makes is good. Every decision I make is not good. And again, I am a drop of water in someone like Elon's ocean of business success. I screw up stuff all day long. I'm not under a magnifying glass. Right. So anything he does is going to be blown up. Now, you could say, you kind of went back before, Elon Musk, or like these tech people, they're human. Elon Musk is a human. Like, I think at the end of the day, and this is where I think people, and again, I agree that he has raised a certain level where he has to be treated differently, not because of a human element, but because of his amount of influence on the world.
Yeah.
So I do agree that he's got a level of responsibility. I also believe that Elon, at the end of the day, is a human just like you or I, and has faults, and does stupid stuff, and sends stupid memes, and and says dumb stuff. Like we all do every day. Right. It's just he happens to, anytime he makes a tweet, it goes on national news. I make a tweet, 5 people see it. You know what I mean? It's just different.
It's different, but it also, at the end of the day, on my scorecard, I want to be supporting people that I would actually want to be hanging out with.
Well, I mean, I would love to hang out with Elon, but I would say do I think that would it be the best person to have in charge if you're looking for a very stable, job or career? Maybe not. And again, the people at Twitter didn't have a choice.
Right.
So like I get that, but I also get how many people at Twitter, and I don't know the numbers or this even happened, how many people voluntarily just left because he was coming on. A lot. And I would think it would be. I don't know the numbers, but I would assume that was pretty high. based on ideology differences.
Right.
So my whole thought is, you're always going to have some level of that. You see it at a local level. Someone takes over the company, like, I hate that person, I'm leaving. You might lose 2 employees of 20 people, and Twitter might lose 1,000 employees of 5,000 people,
5,000, right.
or whatever that is. A lot of the percentages and numbers, you just, obviously you're scaling up, and then you put them under the magnifying glass. So I do think he's not perfect. I would say at the end of the day, though, he is an outlier in many regards, and that doesn't. And again, I think I heard this the other day. Like, someone said, "I'm not taking marital advice from Elon Musk." Like, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't take parenting advice from Elon Musk.
Right.
But from his brilliance on what he's good at, and we kind of go back to like we just talked about earlier in the podcast, of like, I want to offload stuff I don't like to do and I'm not good at. Like, I have to work at that. Elon still has to work at that, but Elon has gotten himself to a position where he can really work on the 1% that he's good at, and the 99 he outsources.
Right.
So the 99, if you're judging him on the 99 part of it, we'll just realize like those are weaknesses. And really, if you asked Elon Musk, he's probably only good in life at a handful of things. I mean, just in general.
Right.
Like, I would say, is Elon Musk as good at, could Elon Musk sell real estate as well as I could? I don't know. I'd probably say no, because that's what I've learned, and he doesn't really have that level. And not Elon Musk as like Elon Musk shows up and sells your house as Elon Musk today. I'm saying like that, just physically, you don't know who this guy is. He shows up, sells a house, and he's brand new. Is he, and then you start like looking, it's like, but no, he's really good at a certain few things, and that's all he does and he's a research development guy. He's even said it. He goes, he's engineer first. He's not HR. He's not like CEO. He's not COO. He's had to grow into those certain roles. I agree. He's not perfect, and I don't think any of these people are perfect. Like Steve Jobs. Like, a lot of people I don't like Steve Jobs. He was an absolute dick to people. Yes, but then you also hear Steve Jobs' side of it is that he was trying to bring out the absolute best in people and push people, and some people didn't like that. But what he did was he pushed those people out, and the best people aligned with him to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. And you could say, like, I don't like the way he went about doing that. Totally fine. You're in your right to say you don't agree with him. You can't deny that he's got, I think, Apple's the most valued company in the world right now.
Yeah.
And when he came back on, it was almost bankrupt.
Right.
So you could say, like, he was mean to employees and hurt people's feelings and did all this. I'm like, not denying that. And he's not denying that. He probably looks at it like this was mission critical, and that's what I was focused on. And I honestly wasn't focused on a bunch of stuff that was important to you. And it's not because he is a bad person or doesn't care, but when you get scaled out, like you talk, no offense, if Elon's talking about 3,000 employees that he doesn't know who they are and they're literally a number, because he just took them over and now you got 3,000 people. I would join that and say, I got 3,000 people. These numbers don't make sense. We got to make cuts. But I don't know that person personally. I'm looking, like you're looking at, Elon's looking at a data sheet with a bunch of numbers and facts and figures. He's not looking at Johnny, Susie, and Carly. They're all sitting in a line that know each other's kids and home life and where they're from and all this stuff. He doesn't have time to learn that. I'm not saying his decisions are great. I'm just saying I can understand if it's truly coming from him at the top saying cut these people out. Like, he doesn't have time to sit there and like read through 3,000 people and be like, God, this person looks like a good, they have 2 kids and they're from the, like, just realistically, like that's not going to happen.
For sure.
I'm being facetious, but I'm saying like this is not, so then you look at like, but you're always going to blame the top person. And Elon's also at a point where his skin is probably so thick that he's like, I don't really like.
No, but he uses Twitter as like a joke place and a meme dump. And
yeah.
But the issue I have is if he's saying stuff and people are reading it and then going and acting on these things that he's saying.
I agree. Yep.
Then that's not good.
Correct.
Or
well, you're playing with people's lives at that point.
Right. And at that point, that's too much.
I agree. I agree on that. I don't
from like business stuff, that's totally different, but from like human being making sure that everyone that has Twitter in their bio is, like I work at Twitter. Mm-hmm. Like that should be a badge of honor if you're the CEO, that you have people putting your company in their social.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'll go back to, like, this guy also hasn't lived a normal life. I'm not saying, like, but I'm saying because of the scale and success and where he's at, his life, his normal, or whatever, you know what I'm talking about? Like, his normal is way different than most people.
Right. Absolutely.
So, like, you got to look at, like, this guy's normal is not that normal, and you almost have to treat him as, like, a different, your expectation of him has to be different just because you know the stuff that he's thinking about and doing is just different. And this is every high-level person. You got a high-level musician, they're quirky. High-level artists, they're quirky. So, but I will agree. I do think playing with people's livelihood when you're just, you know, randomly, like, sitting on the couch somewhere and popping in a message and, like, this would be funny, I wonder what this, and you put it, and all of a sudden now you just struck fear through 1,000 people in your company. Because, like, wait, and it's not like they can just walk up and, like, knock on your door and be like, hey, Elon, that text, was that just a joke you just posted, or was that real? They don't have that access to them.
No.
Like you said, they may be 3 states away doing work.
Right. And
like, hey, Elon at twitter.com, was this true? Like, he's not getting those emails, you know?
No.
So I agree on that. I think that level's tough.
It's the Spider-Man thing. It's the with great power comes great responsibility, and you need to be, if you are at that level and that level of a player, you need to make sure that the way you act and handle situations is.
I mean, that's a knock on Donald Trump. Like, I'm just saying, like, you have someone that's very polarizing in the most powerful position in the world, and you have him rattling off tweets that offend people or
terrifying.
And you get that, and, like, I could sit there and say, I don't, like, not a big deal, but it depends on who it's affecting. So if people, and some people obviously have different levels of concern. I mean, we know all people that are more, you know, a small, like, one word might trigger them a certain way and might not have any effect on someone else.
Right.
So you have a whole spectrum of millions of people, tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people that I can see that people got, you know, a tweet offended them. And, you know, and I've had this conversation with people. It's like, I don't agree a tweet, like him sending out a tweet, should he clean up, like, the way that he communicates via Twitter and would probably have a more cohesive people that like him? Absolutely. Right. But, you know, but then again, you got to also think.
But also, why isn't this person at this level? Why doesn't he have a PR person? Why doesn't he have a group of people that goes? But
I think you do. But I think at a certain level, it's like a lot of people that are at a certain level, they just don't care. They live a different life. And I'm not saying they're different people, but I'm saying if you get exposed to a certain level of fame or popularity or having a say or having, you know, if you, like, take someone that's got a level of, let's just say social status, and you come in as a low-level intern, most likely that person's going to be intimidating to you. Most likely if that person told you to jump, you would jump. It's just the way that human nature is, because you have built this up that this person, like if Elon Musk walked in right now and asked me, like, I think you should do this on, you know, for your podcast, I would probably consider it, because I'm like, I don't know, I just feel like he would know more about this than I do. And maybe that's a lack of, what's the word? Or let's not take it, Elon, bad example. Joe Rogan walks in. Joe's like, you should do this, this, and this. The guy got the most powerful podcast in the world. He probably knows a thing or two about podcasting. I'm probably going to listen to him versus some random person off the street comes up and like, I think you should do this, this, and this. I'm like, who are you?
Right.
So there is a level of that, but I'm saying, I agree. Like, when you have a certain level of responsibility, the problem is sometimes those people in responsibility don't have the filter that you wish they had, because they're so, like, I would expect you to filter your stuff a little bit better in myself than Elon Musk.
Yeah.
But I also know that, like, I could say some outrageous thing and piss off half the people in my feed, and that's detrimental to my business.
Right.
I don't talk politics. Like, if you talk politics, you're never going to make out good. You're going to piss off 50% of the people on the drop of a hat. Elon Musk could do it, and he's got FU money and doesn't care.
Right.
Like, so I mean, it's just like a different. Like, everybody's human, but there's a certain level of, like, you build up this social clout, which I'm not saying is good or bad. It's good in certain things. It's terrible in certain things.
It's how you use it.
And I agree. Do I think from a innovation thinking, processing, developing standpoint, I think Elon is off the charts amazing. But with that, again, we're all human. We have 24 hours in a day, and you can only be good at so many things.
Right.
You're not going to be good at that. Like, I'm not good at a lot of things. Like, if I really broke down my life, I have like 4 things I really focus on in my life. I don't focus on 8,
Right.
which is not a high number. But you know what I mean? Like, I can only be good at a few things. And I'm not even saying great. I can only be above average at certain things.
Right.
Like, tech is, and I enjoy tech stuff. I wouldn't even put tech even remotely close in those 4 things of things I'm knowledgeable on. Where you would be like, great. I'm like, real estate's up there for me. But, you know, even some subsets of real estate, I'm like, wouldn't even be in my top 4.
Right.
Because it's such a massive category. But yeah, it's a wild thought. I do like Elon. I disagree with the way that he goes about certain broadcasting things.
I would like to,
And you have a much, you're more on the ground level because you know people there. I don't. So I don't have that human connection with these people.
And I mean, yeah, I think that's a lot of it too, is like knowing at the end of the day, if I'm trying to provide for a family and somebody comes in and goes, hey, you don't work here anymore. I'm not going to be a super big fan of the person that just came in and just cut wherever.
All your buddies or whatever the case. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And like, I get where you're coming from business wise, but it's just like on my deathbed, I want to be known for not being, internet meme lord.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
and I think you look at, I think, it just comes down to the person. Like, I don't think, you're gonna have a ton of people that criticize Jeff Bezos, a ton of people that criticize Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, you name it. There's going to be criticism. Every president's going to have people that absolutely hate that person.
Right. But
you just realize it's like, strip it down to a much smaller level. Name me a school administrator anywhere in America that is loved by everybody. You're not. You're in a leadership position.
Right.
Take any principal, whatever around here. You will see people on Facebook bashing them because they have to make public decisions that people are not going to like. And that's just the reality of it. And like, I think about that stuff in decisions we make. Like, who's this going to piss off? You don't try to piss people off, but you just know what not everybody's going to agree with you. But once you scale those decisions out, my decision for, a couple dozen people is different than a school district for a few hundred, which is different than Twitter, which is millions.
Right.
So I just think it's just kind of one where it's a good debate. I don't think, I don't know if it's good or bad. I do think I'm going to bet on someone like Elon. I don't think Twitter is going to get run to the ground. I think it's going to evolve into something. And I've also heard ways that he's purely buying all the data that Twitter has to turn it into something different, which would be the equivalent of me buying like certain lists or data points for something locally. Like, I'm trying to use that to build something different. And if I have to buy something, you know what I mean? So it's like chess, but it's just obviously at a worldly scale versus me making decisions in rural upstate New York.
Right.
So
for sure,
it's fun. But Emmett, I actually, I agree with a lot of what you say. I think I'm poking the dog here, but it's fun. But Emmett, if people want to connect with you, how can they do so? Where can they do so? And I don't know if you know your company. I don't as well. If people need to use your company, you can give a plug there. Or if you just want people to connect with you, how do they do so?
Just connect. Emmett Naughton on LinkedIn and Twitter. EmmettNaughton.com. And reach out there.
And CoderDads.
We didn't even touch on CoderDads.
No, we didn't last episode. That's why I didn't want to harp on that. But no, I mean, always a good time. Like I said, I love watching you from at least LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter, but the LinkedIn version and seeing stuff and just kind of really seeing. I've noticed a growth in you over the last year on that, where I think you're getting traction and you're building on that, which is cool, and it's fun to watch because I'm not.
Learned skill by practice.
Yes, and you've done a tremendous job, and I think it's snowballing for you. And like I said, I always enjoy talking to you and learning and debating you on stuff that I know nothing really about. That you're much smarter. But that's it. That's episode 230, Gail and Trombley Show. We're out.
Thank you for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on all social platforms at Galen Trombley. Thanks for listening.